West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
On this Thursday, May 1st, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You're waking up in the greatest country in history. We're off and running. We got an entire show planned for you of engaging conversations, critical analysis, but most importantly, your phone calls and texts. We want you to join the conversation. This show is unlike any other in Colorado. Tune over to Colorado Public Radio and you'll hear smooth talk and monologues. You tune over to other conservative talk radio shows. You'll get conservative monologues. You might just listen to the news, but here you get to be a part of the conversation. So give us a call, 303-696-1971. That's 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Spent most of the day yesterday down at the rally and then testimony for this House Bill 1312, this radical trans bill. I'll give you the latest update on where that is, plus some amendments that have been offered to it, and what the debate was really all about yesterday in this committee hearing. Hours and hours and hours of testimony. 8 hours of testimony yesterday, and that was limited. There's enough people there to be at least 13 hours of testimony.
So you're saying that some of the Democrat legislators were able to finish their color by numbers thing they had on their phone, or they were able to, stream enough of the cat videos, because we know they're not paying attention.
Or communicate with porn stars,
yes,
which
exactly.
One of them did.
I'm glad you went that way.
Previously.
Yes,
by the way, I
exactly.
see him walk by.
Yeah.
He walked by me like 3 or 4 times. That's Woody Woodrow.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
that's honestly awesome.
Bro.
Dude, how you don't just mumble OnlyFans under your breath as he goes by. I don't know how you do that. OnlyFans. Oh, I'm sorry. There was something in my throat. I apologize.
So, by the way, I heard from someone else in the media that in light of the lawmakers getting caught playing video games, they have now restricted media from filming behind the lawmakers.
That is hilarious. That's hilarious. That is like the shoplifter saying, well, yeah, if you turn off all the cameras, you wouldn't have caught me. That's great. That's fantastic.
No message to lawmakers to take their job seriously. You're collecting your paycheck from your taxpayers. Maybe you should listen to them when they talk to you.
The stuff they're doing. Right. That's when they're ignoring you and not
Isn't
working.
That funny? And this was a highly reputable media personality in Colorado, too.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That shared that with me.
Oh, wow. That is wonderful.
We're going to talk that. We're going to update you on this U.S.-Ukraine minerals deal that took place. So we'll give you the updates on that. Elon Musk possibly stepping aside from Tesla. The board beginning its CEO search. Is this just a shot across the bow, or is he really looking to change there at Tesla? And then a big U.S. Supreme Court battle that took place yesterday over charter schools, religious charter schools, and state funding. Could this be changing education forever in this country? Plus, all the news and comments you need. We even got possibly some breaking news coming in. We're tracking some latest news. We'll give you the update on that. But now is time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Hey, good morning. Thursday, 42 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 60 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, breaking news from FBI Denver. Special agents arrested Juan Gabriel Orono Rodriguez, who faces federal charges related to distributing cocaine. Orono Rodriguez is a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army. The DEA Rocky Mountain Field Division The Department of the Army Criminal Investigation Division and officials at Fort Carson participated in assisted in the investigation, and they facilitated the arrest Wednesday evening. The charges in the complaint are allegations, and the defendant is presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So breaking news from FBI Denver as they continue to do great work here as we expose all the crime that is going on up and down the Front Range and in the state of Colorado and Denver. Ukraine and the U.S. have signed an agreement giving the U.S. access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals. The Trump administration says the deal also addresses the $175 billion in aid the U.S. has given Ukraine since the start of the war with Russia and establishes economic partnerships. Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary.
The Development Finance Corporation will participate and help to establish this fund in collaboration with the government of Ukraine. Today's agreement signals clearly to Russian leadership that the Trump administration is committed to a peace process centered on a free, sovereign, and prosperous Ukraine over the long term.
The House Judiciary Committee approved a measure along party lines Wednesday that would fund the deportation of 1 million illegals each year. The bill also includes $45 billion to detain 100,000 illegals. And Lindsey Graham, who sometimes does the right thing, asks DEA Administrator nominee Terrence Cole, he's the nominee and a DEA administrator who has decades of experience, if the symbols on Kilmar Garcia's knuckles mean MS-13.
Time as a DEA agent in the field, particularly in Mexico, these tattoos are consistent with MS-13 associations.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Do you know of any other set of combinations that would suggest some other organization this represents?
With this particular one, no, sir.
Now, I have to admit, I got to give balls and strikes here, always. I think Trump is getting a little bad information here on the MS-13 thing. The reporter the other day said the Photoshop of MS-13. It's obvious that is Photoshop. That's put in there, but the symbols do mean MS-13, and they may need to clarify that, but it's no big deal. He's a gang member, please. 3 Colorado companies facing over $8 million in fines from U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement for employing unauthorized workers. ICE said the widespread employment eligibility violations were discovered following worksite audits. The affected companies include CCS Denver Incorporated, PBC Commercial Cleaning Systems, and Green Management Denver. Special Agent in charge Steve Kagan said in a statement that the employment of unauthorized workers undermines the integrity of our immigration system and puts law-abiding employees at a disadvantage. HHS was trafficking children. Well, we've heard this over and over and over. Absolutely incredible, disgusting. The new secretary of HHS said it during the cabinet meeting on Wednesday, RFK Jr.
We have ended HHS as the role as the vector, the principal vector in this country for child trafficking. And during the Biden administration, HHS became a collaborator in child trafficking and for sex and for slavery. And we have ended that, and we're very aggressively going out and trying to find these children, 300,000 children that were lost by the Biden administration.
Incredible. Missing, sex slaves, who knows? God only knows. Horrific. The wide open southern border helped create yet another satanic workshop. And who was the border czar? Yes, Kamala Khan. And she was back in front of her adoring fans last night with her fake smile and whack demeanor. goodness, the video is even worse. Kash Patel with a great move. The FBI reassigning agents who took a knee during all the George Floyd chaos, judging by a few of the photos. There needs to be an obese check on a few of these rogue FBI agents. Authorities say the former Denver police officer who died in Pennsylvania earlier this year was shot by one of his colleagues. Andrew Duarte was working for the West York Borough PD in February when a man took hostages at that local hospital, and then York County's district attorney announced Wednesday that Duarte was struck by shotgun pellets fired at the suspect during the standoff, causing his death. Duarte worked for Denver police between 2017 and 2022. A woman recognized as the oldest person in the world is dead at the age of 116 years old. Her name is Ina Canabero Lucas, and she died on Wednesday in Brazil. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplaceandpatio.com. Avalanche facing elimination tonight in Lodo, and the Nuggets trying to eliminate the Clippers in Southern California this evening. 40 in Thornton, 41 in Aurora, 42 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
I love this guy.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It'll be a cloudy, cool start to your day here in Denver with areas of morning light rain showers. Then there will be a couple of afternoon showers and isolated thunderstorms, highs 50s and lows 60s. Showers ending tonight, lows near 40 degrees. Sunny, nice day Friday, 60s, near 40 Friday night, warming to the 70s and sunny Saturday. 70s and sunny Sunday, but Sunday afternoon and evening, thunderstorms likely. Showers and thunderstorms likely Monday. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Well, it was a long day yesterday, Bill.
Oh, I bet.
Right after the show, I went down to the Colorado State Capitol. There were two great rallies. In fact, three great rallies. Two had to do with House Bill 1312, this radical transgender bill, and then Israel's Independence Day, and got to go be a part of all those. And then they went into committee hearings. This was the Senate Judiciary Committee, made up of 5 Democrats, 2 Republicans, I think maybe 7 Democrats, 2 Republicans, actually. But anyways, heavily Democrat. And a testimony over this transgender bill that you and I have been discussing now for probably a month.
Yeah, seems like a long time.
And they actually had to limit testimony because there was over 700 people that signed up to testify against it. And typically you don't limit testimony. This is the people's house.
Yep.
Everybody gets 2 or 3 minutes, no matter how crazy you are.
Yes.
You get that time, but because...
It's just like that line in elementary school and middle school at the water fountain. It's like 1, 2, 3, touch them on the shoulder, they got to move. Same thing. Same thing. What we're training for.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And how polite you need to be to try to get them to move on.
That's exactly it.
So that went on they limited it to 8 hours. It wrapped up around 11:30 last night. My wife in her job capacity was required to be down there and testify. She did a great job, by the way. Wonderful. I was down for a little bit. I did not testify because I went home and took kid activities and helped the family that way. So busy day yesterday. Now, I listened to hours and hours of testimony on this. Now, Democrats have woken up to the idea that this bill is wildly unconstitutional, so they're trying to amend it to try to get it through. But I want to lay out their concerns and get your response to
and
it.
On a side note, just before you lay out their concerns, on a side note, our listeners have heard me express support for the transgender community and also be very critical of the functionality of this bill.
Right.
When you lose me on my base position and I'm not supporting your bill, that's probably a canary in the coal mine. I'm just saying it's probably a bad sign for your bill if you can't get me on board with this kind of an issue.
Bill, you're exactly right. And in fact, it was raised that a number of LGBT organizations have not supported this bill because they think it's going to set up bad case law.
Yes.
Go to the U.S. Supreme Court and become a problem. Because here's the problem they're trying to solve. Okay? There is harassment of trans people out there.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Okay? So, and we heard from folks yesterday that said, I've been in employment situations where people are like, I'm going to call you whatever the hell name I want to call you.
Yep.
You know, and you're going to deal with it and sit there, you little tranny, that type of thing.
Yep.
And I won't discount that. Like, that is harassment.
Yeah, that's
mean.
And that comes with malice because a person is making the intentional choice to denigrate the other person. That's actual malice. That's what I've been talking about. Yes, so, absolutely.
They take that situation and then they push it into boundaries that are problematic. Bottom line, they see misgendering somebody as no different than using the N-word against somebody.
Yeah.
Okay? That's a reach. Okay?
Yeah.
Because from my perspective, from I think a traditional Christian perspective, you're forcing me in some capacities. And it's for me, it's not the naming that's a problem.
Yeah.
It's the misgendering concern that's the problem, right? Like, I'll call you whatever you want me to call.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see why,
Mark Crowley came in here and said, call me Bob today. I'd be like, all right, Bob.
Okay.
Even if he said, call me Mary today, I'd be like, all right, I'll call you Mary. Like, it's for me, I'm not going to die on that hill. I'll call you whatever you.
Yeah.
But when you get into, you must affirm that I am a woman when you're a biological male, I will not do that. Right? It is asking me to affirm something that is just not true. Okay? So, to put the force of law around that then is where you get into real serious problems. Right? Because I think this is the right perspective. The right, true, honest perspective is that you cannot separate gender from biological sex. And when you do that and then want to force everybody around you to buy into that, which is not true, and then use the force of law, so they see misgendering, dead naming as equivalent to using the N-word, when actually what I think is happening is you're forcing everybody around you to abide by a racial identity that's not true. So if you really believed, if the left wanted to make this argument that somehow misgendering somebody is like using the N-word, and therefore we need to use the force of law to protect it, I think what's actually happening in these scenarios is, imagine somebody was black and said, I identify as Asian, therefore you have to refer to me as Asian. And you have to accept that I'm Asian. And I'm like, dude, you're black. No. I'm Asian because I identify as Asian. And if you don't support me as being Asian, I'm going to use the power of government to force you to do that. And I think when you're using government in that way to force everybody around you to abide by a reality that others don't agree with, that's not the appropriate use of government. But I understand, and I would say too, if you're just berating a trans person, yeah, I think that would be harassment.
And that's where I go with it.
But I think, can't you just leave it in the harassment category? I don't know why you now have to force everybody else to buy into a perception of reality they don't agree with.
I like your analogy of the N-word, but I see it a little bit differently. Not the same type of analogy that you do. I agree that in some ways it can and is not. It can be in some cases and also is not in other cases, like using the N-word, because I believe the way the Democrats are defining this is that anytime someone uses the N-word, it's going to be pejorative, and it's not. Because there are portions of the African American, the rap community, R&B community, in which that is used more as a colloquialism, in which it is more of a greeting between people. And I have seen transgender people tease each other about being trans. It's not the same thing. And it has to do with the pejorative. If you're using it that way, what is the intent of the communication? When I go back to the malice, and if you are using it, if you're using the N-word to denigrate somebody else and to tear them apart and to abuse them, yeah, I've got a problem with that. But in other situations, I don't think it's necessarily always going to be termed and viewed as an insult. Same thing with misgendering or misidentifying someone.
And at what point does the government come in? And can't you just put it under traditional harassment restrictions?
Yeah.
Right? There are already laws preventing, at least in the workplace, and a lot of this fell under workplace requirements, right? That if you're just being a jerk to somebody, regardless of whether or not they're trans or not, it's going to fall under some other violation.
Yeah.
Now, do you need to bring in the weight of law to try to figure out all these little nuances? I don't think so.
Yeah, if someone is a coworker and they happen to be trans, and you didn't want to refer to them by their chosen gender, and they came to you and said, "Listen, this hurts me. This is emotional. I feel that you're doing this to be mean. I think you're doing this to make me feel invisible. I don't feel." Is there a way that we could come to an agreement? Maybe you don't refer to me as any pronoun. Don't use the he or the she. Could you use they, or could you just use my chosen name rather than defaulting to the other pronoun? Can we just use no pronouns rather than a chosen pronoun? And if you, as that coworker, turns around and goes, "Nope, I'm going to continue to tell you that you're this," now you may be cresting into harassment, because the person has expressed that this communication this person has expressed to you that the way in which you're talking to them, treating them, and dealing with them and identifying them inside the workplace hurts and causes them difficulty and harm. And now we have but do we need an extra law to say that because they're trans, we're already going to assume the other person is acting with malice? No, we don't. I think you can solve this through regular harassment type of laws.
Yeah, and at what point is there harassment? At what point is there like a deeply held disagreement? Okay, so I will bring up a real world example.
Yeah.
Breonna Tattone is a man. Okay?
Biologically, yes. Gender, no.
And that's where you and I disagree. I don't break down, and I'm not trying to say this to bully and harass and intimidate Breonna Tattone. But we have a state lawmaker in the midst of all of these debates about transgenderism and the rule of law and all that stuff. Fundamentally, bottom line, brass tacks, end of the day, I'm not trying to bully Breonna Tattone, but Breonna Tattone is a man.
But if she came to you and said, "I view it as bullying, I view it as an attack, and I view it as harassment,"
and at that point, you're dealing with, like, you're trying to use the force of law for me to buy into your worldview that I fundamentally disagree with.
But the issue being, is the person saying to you and expressing to you, "This hurts me. The way in which you are communicating with me and defining me and talking to me hurts me." And so that's something that I think that the person then uttering the words now has some responsibility, because the person you're communicating with has told you that the words are doing harm, and at that point, the person who is speaking them does hold responsibility on their words at that point.
If Breonna Tattone came to you and said, "I'm black," you're like, "Breonna, you're not black. You're a white man." No. I'm a black woman. And you're going, "Breonna, I'm not trying to be mean here. I'm trying to help you understand the reality of the situation. You are not a black woman. You are a white man. Well, now I'm going to use the force of government to penalize you because you won't buy into my vision of myself as a black woman."
Yeah, but I disagree with the idea of race being equated with the idea of gender in the trans issue. I think those aren't necessarily analogous. However, if Breonna Tattone was of mixed race and said, even though that she was of very light skin and had straight hair and perhaps blue eyes, and then wanted to identify as black in the office and everything else, and you continually referred to her as that white dude or white girl, then now we seem to have an issue if she comes to you and expresses, "No, please, I want you to refer to me this way, this is why, and this is who I am, do it this way."
And so where do you draw the line then? Where do you draw the line between harassment and just being a jerk, right? Or using the force of government to now force other people to buy into what you may consider being a delusion?
Intent and respect. That you may disagree with the other person, just like you and I disagree on things on politics, but there are certain things that we don't use that as far as pejoratives. And if the other person comes to you and says, "The way in which you are dealing with me and communicating with me shows me a lack of respect and hurts me," then it's on you to look at changing your behavior, because if you don't, it means now you have taken on the intent that I talk about all the time, because the other person has told you, "This hurts, this harms me." And if you continue to behave in that manner, you are choosing to enact that harm and hurt on that individual. And that's your choice then, and own the choice.
The problem, though, is when you get into like custody issues, and we actually saw this yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay? A dad going, "I believe I am loving my daughter better by not allowing her to transition," and the wife going, "I believe I'm loving the daughter best by allowing her to transition," and then the courts weighing in and going, "Well, the person who loves her better is the one that's allowing her to," and tipping the scales that direction.
Well, the thing for me is, and this is what I would assume, and again, I'm making an assumption here, is that the court would spend some time talking to the child as well. And that would be the issue, because in those custody cases, oftentimes courts do talk to the child and talk about, where do you feel the most comfortable? Where do you have a preference? Who do you feel? And how should this work out? We both know people that have gone through custody cases, including children that have been involved and are adults, and that was their experience. So at that point, there is a consideration.
This law tips the scales.
In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. And that's why I'm worried about it, because what I see in some of the law is a consideration rather than a mandate. But there are other portions of the law that it seems to read more closer to a mandate, that the choice is prescribed by law, that you automatically have to choose one family over the other. And that's one of the worries I have inside the bill, because I believe it shows mixed messages, that depending on how you want to read it, you can read it either as you have to give the kid to the parent that is going to support the transition, or the court has to consider what is happening between the two and take the child into account. And those are two different things, but it seems to the law, from what I'm reading, speaks with two voices. And I have a problem with that. I don't think it's very clear on that. I don't have a problem with consider. But when it talks to more mandating language, that this has to be the priority, then I have a problem. I do have a problem with them saying this is a priority, because you could have a person that supports the transition of the child, but it also could be an absolutely wrong place for that child to be raised at that time for a variety of other reasons that has nothing to do with the transgender issue. So that's where I have a problem with it.
Long debate yesterday. It ultimately passed through the committee on a party line vote. We'll head to the Senate floor for debate now. At the end of the day, this is deeply problematic, because I think society is wrong to separate out gender and sex. I think they're uniquely connected. They're with regards to sex, or not uniquely connected, wholly connected with regards to sex, that is concrete. The idea that we're going to take something that's so ethereal as gender identity that changes, that has infinite expressions, and then bring the weight of law to force people to have to abide by whatever identity that person comes up with that day, even if it's not born and connected directly to reality, is the wrong use. And if you're concerned about harassment, I think the laws are already there to prevent that type of stuff. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. The transgender bill that passed the House now has passed the Senate committee, heading to the floor of the Senate. They've got less than a week to get all their work done. This will be debated. This is good for the state of Colorado. Does it make us more inclusive, more accepting, more protecting the trans community?
And as I talked about it, that while I support the trans community, I am not in favor of this bill for a variety of reasons. So what does it mean when you lose me on this issue? When I'm not on board on a law like this, why is that not a red flag for all the Dems in this state? I mean, I'm not a Democrat, but I definitely am in the camp of helping to support the transgender community. But I can't support this bill? What does that tell you about this damn thing?
Great question. Join the conversation. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Lots of debates on the text message line about House Bill 1312. This is the transgender bill that is going to use the power of government to force you to abide by other people's views of their gender. People going, Jeff, I love you, but you're way wrong here. It's equivalent to this. You have one MAGA Republican who's always referenced as racist, called out in meetings as such, and every time he walks through an aisle at the supermarket, he is called a racist. What rights or protections should this person have, especially if they know they're not racist? I guess to Bill's point, neighbor to neighbor, why is it so hard to accept others' viewpoints and give respect to those views even though you don't necessarily agree? So for me, 9588, it's the power of government. It's the power and the force of government to take people that disagree with the way you may identify yourself and force them to do so. Okay? So, like I said, if someone came up to you and said, Jeff, I'm a black woman and you're a white man and you have to identify me as a black woman. Okay? There's a reality at stake here. All right, we're not just dealing with identities. I identify as this. No, there's an actual reality. You're either a black woman or you're a white man. And to now force everybody to say you are a black woman is to force people to actually lie and to buy into your delusion. And then to bring the force of government to say you will lose your job. You will be fined. You can lose custody of your child if you don't buy into this delusion and believe a lie. That's the problem I have with this. And this isn't just ethereal either. You've had Jack Phillips drugged before a government tribunal for a decade or more because he refused to abide by these types of rules. He does not believe that marriage can be between two people of the same sex. And so he's not going to use his free speech, his expression, to abide by that, to agree with that. Now you're going to have to go through government training. Now you're going to have to believe it. Look, if you believe that somebody that doesn't share your gender identity is a jerk, all right, they're a jerk. I'm sorry your feelings are hurt. I go down to this point, 9588, I go down to the state capitol all the time. I'm called racist, misogynist, Nazi, all that stuff, okay? People call me that because I'm a conservative. I don't have the power to go grab a police officer and go, this person here, they called me a Nazi. Well, I'm not a Nazi. There's nothing in me that's Nazi-ish. They called me it. Police officer. Arrest that person. My feelings are hurt. Look, I understand. I don't want people to be treated poorly. That's not the point of this. The point is, do you have the power of government to force people to believe what you believe? And if they don't do it, to therefore punish them. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line. By the way, today, Bill, a day without immigrants.
Yes.
And I'm reading that there may be protests all over blocking roads on Broadway between Highlands Ranch and the Capitol.
That's stupid.
It's possible.
Well, it's the thing for
me. A day
is,
without immigrants.
It's go protest whatever you want, but don't block the roadways. That's just dumb. And the idea that because you are going to intentionally make it more difficult for someone that is going somewhere, it's not going to help your cause. You aren't. Here's the idea: if you're going to be part of these protests that are going to go block roadways or access to buildings, can you tell me a single instance when someone has gone, wow, look, they're blocking the road where I need to go right now. They're obviously right. Have you convinced anybody to join your side based on behaving that way? Probably not. So perhaps, just a suggestion. If you want to, maybe choose a different way. Just saying.
Yesterday, I was talking to some folks down at the state capitol who were of Mexican descent. And I said, tomorrow's a day without an immigrant, and they're going to have a protest at the Capitol. And they laughed and said, no Mexicans will actually be there because we all work. The only people that will attend a day without an immigrant protest are white liberals. And I said, I think you're probably exactly right. I think that's exactly who's going to be at the Day Without an Immigrant protest. I'm going to go down and check it out. But my guess, probably white liberals. Mexicans are hardworking people. I don't think they're going to take the day off to go to a Day Without an Immigrant protest. We want to go to the phone lines. Pete, Monument. Good morning, Pete. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, guys. The problem I see with these laws is you now have the government compelling people to participate in what I would consider a delusion. You can't compel people to believe a certain way. You can't compel people to use certain speech. I think the Constitution is extremely clear on that. I would hope that this law would get struck down immediately through higher courts if it came into effect. But this is a really slippery slope as far as society goes. You now have government interjecting in people's lives on what they can say and what they can't say, and they're even going as far as trying to compel people what to believe, and that is extremely dangerous.
I don't think I disagree with you. They're compelling you what to believe. They're just in some ways asking you to treat the other person with respect. Now, I don't support the law because I don't think it defines malice. But
define respect.
The other person says, "Refer to me this way." Please refer to me this way.
Okay, what if your neighbor identifies as your wife's husband? Should you respect that? What do you do with that, Bill? It's a delusion.
What I do is I ignore that because that's a dumb analogy. The person isn't coming over and behaving like a husband. The person isn't coming over and doing any of the other things that is my wife's husband, which would be me. And also we legally define husband and wife as well. We have several laws that define that. That's totally different. Totally different.
Well,
the person, Pete, like, let's say that you have a woman that is married in the office, and she comes in and she says, my last name is now this. And you're like, no, it's not. This is what's on your birth certificate. You were born this way. I know you changed it, but you can't change who you are. You're still this. And she's like, no, out of respect for my husband and the new life that I'm starting, I want you to use my last name. And if you go, nope, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to pretend in your delusion you're not that person. That's not what your parents named you. Screw you. You're now being the jerk. And the issue, Pete, is that she has expressed to you what she would want and what would be a form of respect between the two of you. I'm not giving you, I'm not saying, I'm not assuming malice. No, it's not. You're being nice to her. No, it's not. You're being nice to her. She has said that she's changed her name and you're not willing to. You're being a jerk.
Do we have biological definitions of man and women and gender? And now one side is choosing to totally disregard those definitions. We're choosing to disregard millions of years of
Pete,
science.
You're wrong. No, Pete, because biology and gender are different, my friend. And we're not disrespecting those.
In your opinion.
No. Gender is a social construct. Biology is sex.
And I disagree with you 100%.
No, I know, but
So
cultural. I know, sir,
can...
Pete. I understand, but cultural anthropologists disagree with you. History disagrees with you. Gender is a social construct.
But how is this not harassment against Pete? How is it harassment? How is he being harassed? Forcing Pete to abide by other people's gender identities not a harassment of Pete?
How is it a harassment of Pete? What is it?
You're using the power of government to force him to believe something he doesn't believe.
No, I don't support the law. Hang on a sec. I'm talking about the law. No, I'm talking about personal behavior. Pete's being a jerk. Yes, by not acknowledging the other person's chosen name, whatever that is,
and you don't
Pete's
see
being a jerk.
Forcing him to abide by something he doesn't believe as being jerkish behavior?
Wouldn't it be Wouldn't it fall under, just like you said, harassment? And isn't that the government then forcing him not to harass that person?
No, there's legal definitions of harassment, Bill. There's legal definitions of harassment.
Yes. And in some cases, this could fall under it. And Jeff outlined that. That wasn't my position. That was the outline that Jeff had originally. And yes, this could fall under it. If you go to a certain level, yes, absolutely.
Under existing laws.
Yes, harassment. Yes,
Pete,
exactly.
I
yes.
appreciate the call. We got to get to You Choose the News.
Compelling law and speech. Yes.
The debate rages. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Well, the debate is spicy this morning as we follow House Bill 1312, the radical transgender bill at the state capitol. It was debated till the wee early hours of the morning, and we continue the debate here. We're going to pause for a little moment of levity. Some You Choose the News.
Yes, it is that time where we come full circle, and it is You Choose the News. Yes, America's favorite fake radio news game show. I've scoured the interwebs for moments this morning to find really dumb stories about us humans, to give them even more ridiculous headlines so that we can play this fake radio news game show. Why would I ever do that? Because, well, nobody in charge is awake yet, so we are going to take full advantage of being left unsupervised. Yes, we are proudly wasting valuable KNUS airtime. Yeah, note to our parents, this is what happened when y'all went out of town when we were younger. That's what Jeff and I did. Okay, now Blake Olson, who was a nice, fine, upstanding, responsible young man, is going to be joining us from the newsroom. Jeff Hunt is in the studio. Gentlemen, here are your choices this morning. Headline number 1. Headline number 2. They're going at it like, well, you know. Headline number 3. Seeing red. And headline number 4, when I first met you, didn't realize. Can't forget you or your surprise.
Seeing red, please.
Yes, seeing red. Well, here we are traveling to Brazil, and there are a bunch of soccer supporters that are definitely seeing red. Recently, when former President Javier Bolsonaro was displaced, people would chant, "Our flag will never be red." But this might be an even larger protest in the soccer-loving nation. An early version of their World Cup jersey has leaked. One of them is red. That is not good. Not good at all. The football purists in and around the international community, but especially inside of Brazil, are going freaking crazy. Brazil has 2 international uniforms. One's yellow, one's blue. That's it. Period. Full stop. End of the story. No other discussions. That's what they've been doing for years. Red is not part of it. Red is not part of it. And it's not a gender thing because both the women and the men wear the same color shirts.
I know. You're saying there's only 2. And I'm going, there are only 2.
Yeah, but again, that's a matter of shirt. That's a matter of shirts. So, and again, the other players can choose to wear something else when they play for other clubs. So yes, you can wear other colors. A whole rainbow of colors. Like how I worked rainbow into that one too. So yes, they're very, very mad that they're only allowed to wear, that they're going to be floating a red jersey. Now the Brazil Soccer Federation has said, no, that's not us. No, that was a fake. No, not us. It was real. It was a real mock-up. But now they're changing it. So they haven't released the official uniforms yet. Okay, now, Blake Olson, sir, your headlines are, they're going at it like, well, you know. And when I first met you, didn't realize, can't forget you, or you're a surprise. Your choice. Yes.
You do that too well.
I've got too many cats. Here we are meeting TikToker Jolene Dawson. Jolene recently invested $8,000 on plastic surgery. And what was it for? It was so she could look like a cat.
Oh,
yes, no. She wanted to flare her nostrils, accentuate her cheeks. Basically, she wanted the heightened angular features of a cat. But however, things did not go as according to plan. Some of the implants and other fillers have been rejected by her body almost immediately. One of the procedures has left her in severe pain. So much so, she tried to remove some of the filaments herself. Yes, home surgery. Of course, the outcome left her with scars on her face. Here's the thing. Publicly, she said, well, I know I was talking about how I wanted to look more like a cat, and really, I'll be honest, and this is a quote, I don't want to admit this, but I was just doing this for attention. End quote.
No way.
Yes. Oh, TikToker influencer, and she says she's just doing it for attention? Oh, thank you. Like that wasn't freaking obvious. You're already filming yourself dancing and doing all that crap. But yeah, she, for $8,000, tried to turn herself into a cat. And it went so badly, she's now going to be permanently scarred, and she looks awful. Looks absolutely atrocious after this.
Was she going to use the litter box?
Yeah, I know. She was. Yes, she was.
And if you don't refer to her as a real cat, we'll bring the power of government to force you.
Right. Now, Jeff,
See
your
how
choice,
you bring us all back to the debate? All right.
Now, Jeff, your choice, sir. They're going at it like, well, you know, or when I first met you, didn't realize.
When I first met you, please.
When I first met you, didn't realize, can't forget you or your surprise. Shout out to all my Black Sabbath fans who recognize that as the opening lyric to Name That Tune, Sweet Leaf. Now, we are going to a Turkish town of lice. Recently this week, they burnt a whole bunch of marijuana. They'd confiscated 20 tons. They burnt it, and the entire town got high for 2 days. They didn't check the wind, and they burned it just outside of town, and the cloud went over the top of it. People going to the hospital, experiencing nausea, and no Doritos anywhere in the entire city. No Doritos. They were all eaten. So, yeah, that's it. Back to you.
We're going to talk Ukraine minerals deal. You're listening to Jeff and Bill.
KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City, and if you thought you were going to spend your Thursday morning discussing the mineral rights in Ukraine, congratulations. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to dive into this new deal between U.S. and Ukraine with regards to mineral rights. And does this mean that we're getting even closer to a ceasefire, a peace deal? I think so. We'll get into this coming up. Rory O'Neill's going to join us from NBC News in just a few minutes. Plus, in the 8 o'clock hour, we're going to discuss, is Elon Musk stepping aside from Tesla? Are they looking for a new CEO? Wall Street Journal saying yes, Reuters saying no. What's going on here? And is it time for Elon Musk to focus? Can he wear this many hats? And then, of course, in the 9 o'clock hour, the Supreme Court having a major discussion yesterday on funding, state funding for charter schools that may be religious. Could this be changing education across the country? All of this and more on this morning's Jeff and Bill show. But now it's time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning, Thursday. 43 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 60 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, breaking news an hour ago last night, FBI Denver's special agents arrested Juan Gabriel Arona Rodriguez, who faces federal charges related to distributing cocaine. Arona Rodriguez is a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army, the DEA Rocky Mountain Field Division, the Department of the Army Criminal Investigation Division, and officials at Fort Carson participated and assisted in the investigation. Arona Rodriguez will be in court today, and they're not saying this is related to the huge raid at the underground nightclub in the Springs, but let's put two and two together, and that equals quattro.
Which would mean
right?
We're starting to get some charges that were coming out. There were some other media companies out there, news, I put news in quotes, that were saying, this was like January, there's not a lot of charges coming. Nope, there's charges coming out.
Now who was saying that, Jeff? I mean not specifically. You're saying a few outlets.
One that you used to be employed at.
Oh, okay.
They were going, but there's not a lot of charges. But there might be some federal. But what about the state charges? We can't. But what?
This
How
isn't,
will they-
wait,
how
this
will
isn't
they spin this?
McDonald's. It's not like, they arrest you and it's like, please pull to the second window to get your charges. That's not what happens. Take some time here. I mean, give him a little space. I'm just saying. I'm giving Trump space on some stuff too. Just calm down. Let's see what they file. Please. Crap. Yeah. Thank you. Would you like to supersize your charges? Yeah, no, we can't do that.
Exactly. Supersize them. Oh, my goodness. So the DEA previously reported there were 17 active duty military inside the club, if you remember that, overnight on Sunday morning. So the commander-in-chief and the new Secretary of Defense will not be happy with this soldier, obviously, or these soldiers, as Pete Hegseth in the cabinet meeting on Wednesday talking about all the great things happening, which we all agree.
In the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, the men and women of America want to join the United States military led by President Donald Trump.
And the police, by the way.
Absolutely.
And fire. I always mention the fire, but the police and fire. But the police and fire likewise they have waiting lists now. And 6 months ago was a disaster.
Truly historic. We can barely absorb the volume and retention as well. Men and women in the military who don't want to get out now that they have a real commander-in-chief. We're reinforcing standards. We're going to be fit, not fat, in our formations. We welcome back all the COVID, the folks who were forced out because of the COVID mandate. We ripped wokeness out of the military, sir, DEI, trans, and it's Fort Benning and Fort Bragg again.
Yes.
Dude, it is actually fascinating what's happening in the military right now.
No doubt.
Because
no question.
The guys who made it to senior level positions under Obama and Biden had to buy into all that woke stuff.
Correct.
And I've known them. I've known them personally. And they sold their souls to get to that level. And they bought into it, and they went along, and that's the commander-in-chief and all that.
Right.
And so you have an element of where Trump is cleaning out those types of folks that were putting all this other crap ahead of actually being a fighting force, right?
Yes.
The DEI stuff, the woke agenda, you've got to get vaxxed or we're going to kick you out of the military type of stuff. He's clearing those out. You have people that had to put up with so much of that and keep their heads down in order to just survive. Now those guys are being unleashed and the military's turning. And then you've got this wave of new people that are coming in that are actually proud to serve this president.
Right.
So, I mean, this is an underreported story, but you're having a seismic shift in our military for the good.
Yeah, it really is. One of the worst things I cannot get it out of my mind. I think it was the Air Force. It may have been at the academy. They were in that amphitheater, and the trans guy comes up there and talks about pronouns. And, you know, you have the generals and you have the high-ranking officials in there like having to nod their head. I mean, it's just horrible. So getting rid of that, thank God. VP J.D. Vance cast a tie-breaking vote in the Senate last night to kill a resolution that would undo DJT's trade policy. The Senate rejected a resolution that would have revoked Trump's emergency power to impose global tariffs. The vote was tied along party lines with a few Republicans, of course, here we go, joining Democrats in support of the resolution. Vote them out. Get them out of here. Kamala Khan is slamming Trump's tariff policies. Oh, wow. She gave a speech in San Francisco last night and called Trump's first 100 days absolute chaos. Kamala Khan said Trump's tariffs are clearly inviting a recession, like she knows anything about that. She does know about recessions. She created them. And called it the greatest man-made economic crisis in modern presidential history. She really understands economics. Hey, her good buddy, Michelle Obama, she is on a roll this week on her podcast.
I wanted to talk, Marlon, a bit about, just so proud of how you are being a role model for dealing with a child that's transgender. And that's, that warms my heart, particularly as a black man. Would you care to share that journey of...
Well, I learned...
Wait. Let me rewind that. Hold on.
That warms my heart, particularly as a black man.
Whoa. Now, was she talking about Marlon? Whoever Marlon was, or was she... Whoa. Wait a minute. Okay, I don't know what color your skin has anything to do with understanding transgender, but wow.
Would you care to share that journey of...
Well, I learned...
Legendary University of Alabama football coach Nick Saban will join President Trump at this week's University of Alabama graduation ceremony. Trump will deliver the commencement speech on Thursday. Saban and UA President Stuart Bell will also deliver remarks. Alabama has strongly supported Trump in the past 3 elections. Thank you, Lord. Kash Patel with a great move. The FBI reassigning those agents who took a knee during all the George Floyd chaos. I mean, there were photos and videos of them, and judging by a few of the photos, there needs to be an obese check on some of these rogue agents. A woman recognized as the oldest person in the world is dead at the age of 116. Sister Ina Canabrero Lucas died Wednesday in Brazil. 40 in North Glen, 41 in Centennial, 43 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It'll be a cloudy, cool start to your day here in Denver with areas of morning light rain showers. Then there will be a couple of afternoon showers and isolated thunderstorms, highs 50s and lows 60s. Showers ending tonight, lows near 40 degrees. Sunny, nice day Friday, 60s, near 40 Friday night, warming to the 70s and sunny Saturday. 70s and sunny Sunday, but Sunday afternoon and evening, thunderstorms likely. Showers and thunderstorms likely Monday. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Rory O'Neill, NBC News national correspondent, is going to be joining us here in just a second as we discuss the Ukraine minerals deal with the United States. Thank God we're finally getting to a place where we're investing military and actually getting a return out of it. When I look back at Afghanistan and Iraq, the blood that we spent there, the fortune that we spent there, and I'm not sure we got a dang thing for it. It's nice to see some deals where we're going to get some type of payment back for what America sacrifices. I want to talk to you first about our friend Dan Caplis with Dan Caplis Law. I've known Dan for well over a decade. He's pro-life, pro-family, pro-faith, and pro-America. He's right there with us on the values, and he spent the last 40 years of his life helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. That's a lifetime of service to the people of this town. And he's delivered for them. Listen to this. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado state history. Dan Caplis Law is so trusted that he's the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law, a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. Now, chances are you're not in a car accident right now, and this phone number is coming right to you. And when that happens, do you want to have to be Googling Dan Caplis Law and trying to figure out the phone number? No, just put it in your phone right now so you have it there. Dan Caplis Law. Here's the phone number, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S Law.com. Dan Caplis Law, a great supporter of this show. We appreciate him so much. Thank you, Dan. All right. BBC reporting U.S. and Ukraine sign long-awaited natural resources deal. The U.S. has signed a deal with Kiev to share profits from the future sale of Ukraine's mineral and energy reserves after months of tense negotiations. The deal aims to provide an economic incentive for the U.S. to continue to invest in Ukraine's defense and reconstruction, as well as to address Washington's concerns over the amount of aid it has already contributed. Ukraine is believed to have vast reserves of critical minerals like graphite, titanium, and lithium. They're highly sought after because of their use in renewable energy, military technology, and infrastructure. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said it showed both sides were committed to lasting peace and prosperity in Ukraine. The deal will also see the establishment of an investment fund to spur Ukraine's economic recovery from the war. According to the statement from U.S. Treasury on Wednesday afternoon, the newly created U.S.-Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Fund recognizes the significant financial and material support the U.S. has given Ukraine since Russia invaded in February of 2022. The U.S. Treasury Secretary said in a video statement that the deal would help unlock Ukraine's growth and assets. The language of the announcement shows much more solidarity with Ukraine than is usual for the Trump administration. It refers to Russia's full-scale invasion and adds that, quote, no state or person who financed or supplied the Russian war machine will be allowed to benefit from the reconstruction of Ukraine. Now, the Kremlin has not yet responded to the agreement. For Kiev, it is seen as essential to accessing U.S. military. Ukraine's deputy prime minister, who flew to Washington to ink the deal on Wednesday, said in a post on X that the new fund would attract global investment into our country. Listing the deal's provisions, she said it would involve projects in minerals, oil and gas, although the resources would remain the property of Ukraine. The partnership will be equal on a 50-50 basis, she added, and would be ratified by lawmakers in Kiev. Under the deal, the U.S. would contribute new assistance to Kiev, she added, including, for example, air defense systems. President Trump has repeatedly pushed for the agreement as a prerequisite to offering any future security guarantees to Kiev. Crucially, the draft of the deal indicates Ukraine will be giving Washington access to some of its natural resources in return for future U.S. security assistance. But that is significantly less than what Trump had wanted, which was to get paid back for all U.S. military aid given since the start of the war. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has managed to eke out some concessions from Washington. The deal was initially delayed after U.S. authorities said Kiev was trying to make last-minute changes, but on Wednesday afternoon, a U.S. source familiar with the talks criticized Ukraine for seeking to reopen some terms that had apparently been finalized over the weekend, but they got the deal done. All right, joining us now to provide some insight, Rory O'Neill, NBC News national correspondent. Rory, thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hey, good morning. Happy Thursday.
Well, it seems like a big deal being signed between the U.S. and Ukraine, and they're getting it done with regards to these mineral rights. Give us some insight.
Yeah, and this is much more of a long-term deal, right? We're all still focused on next week when we've got Russian President Putin has said he's offering up a 3-day ceasefire to mark the anniversary of the end of World War II. But Ukraine has said, how about 30 days? That's a short-term issue. This is going to be a long-term partnership with the U.S. and Ukraine in what they call a reconstruction investment fund. That way the two countries will be able to work together to try to develop ways to tap into the natural resources there in Ukraine as the country emerges from this invasion.
That's Rory O'Neill, NBC News national correspondent, joining us, talking about the Ukraine minerals deal they're signing with the U.S. Now, does this deal include any sort of guarantees of security, or is that implied based on the fact that, hey, we want your stuff?
Right, it's implied. It is not explicit. So essentially, sorry, bad sore throat today. Essentially, the deal says that if Jeff and Bill open the Jeff and Bill mining facility in the Kursk region of Ukraine, then this fund will help facilitate that. But if there is an attack on Ukraine, there's no explicit mention that the 82nd Airborne is going to go in, boots on the ground, we're going to defend Ukraine. But it certainly is implied that since the U.S. is helping facilitate the Jeff and Bill mine, that we're going to help protect it if it were to ever come under attack.
Now, you got to love the fact that, when you're pulling stuff out of the ground, they call it a mine. I mean, just in reference point, I just think that's funny. Okay, now, on a side note, Rory O'Neill. Now, what are you hearing on the Ukrainian side? I've been reading some things about they feel a touch betrayed after the agreement in the 90s where they gave up the nuclear arsenal that was there after Russia collapsed, or USSR collapsed. They felt they were guaranteed security, and they're not getting a guarantee of security with this deal either. In your reporting and your research, how are the Ukrainians viewing this deal?
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of that frustration. And if people weren't familiar, 30 years ago, Ukraine, when the Soviet Empire, the Soviet Union fell, Ukraine had all these nuclear weapons because that's where the Soviet Union had positioned them. And the deal was Ukraine wanted to give them up like, hey, we don't want all these nukes. That's not our thing. We're trying to become a country on our own. And the deal was, all right, they'll surrender the nukes. Russia and the US of A agree to provide security to Ukraine because they're giving up this incredibly powerful arsenal that was suddenly left in their control. Well, obviously, Russia reneged on the deal, and now the accusation is that the U.S. is doing the same by not providing the security we said we would when they gave up the nukes. Because imagine if Ukraine had kept all the nukes, Russia certainly would not have invaded 3 years ago.
No, they would not have. That would have been a nice deterrent. Now, you're listening to Rory O'Neill, NBC News national correspondent. I know your voice is going, so I just want to ask maybe one more question. And that's about the mineral rights that exist in the portion of the country that Russia has taken control of. There are some valuable areas in which there are some of those rare earth minerals that Trump wants, and there's one place that could be incredibly valuable. Is the U.S. in their peace negotiations giving up some of the rare earth minerals that they say they want so badly? Could we perhaps be making a bad deal?
Well, now you're getting into the nitty gritty. Now, because when we get, again, we're talking long-term versus short-term, right? We're trying to get to at least a ceasefire to stop the immediate fighting. But a final truce is going to draw new lines. And then where are they drawn? Does it include those locations, as you pointed out, that might have rich deposits of lithium and titanium, and even possibly uranium? And there's also the nuclear power plant there, the Zaporizhzhia plant, the biggest nuclear power plant in all of Europe. It's in Ukraine, or was, but it's been under Russian control for a couple of years now. So is that also given away? Because that's one heck of a prize for Vladimir Putin. You go in, Putin goes in, invades a neighboring country, and takes as a prize the biggest nuclear power plant in all of Europe. How's that going to be negotiated as well? That's something else to look out for.
Yeah, Russia, which has basically become Europe's gas station, now gets their hands on nuclear power as well. The only way they're making money right now is based on energy. That's Rory O'Neill, NBC News national correspondent. Thanks for your time today. We'll let you go a little bit early than we planned today, Rory, because I want you to make sure that your voice is good for the next couple of national hits you've got. Thank you so much for your time, and have a good day.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that was fun. That was Rory O'Neill, NBC News national correspondent, talking about wounds, pain of settling down the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. But I want to dial this in a little bit closer to home. I want to talk about some of the wounds, pains, issues that you're dealing with in your own life. Now, if you've got a slow-healing cut, a diabetic ulcer, a pressure sore, maybe someone you or someone in your life has that, it doesn't seem like a big deal given everything else that you're probably dealing with, the idea of stress and budget, and there could be some other comorbidities, things like diabetes or neuropathy. But that slow healing cut, that open wound, can actually be a very big deal. Seems like a little deal now, but Jennifer Walker, who founded Wound Care Associates of Colorado, found out how big of a deal that slow healing cut can be in her very own life. Her uncle had some diabetes, had neuropathy, and developed a small cut on his foot. He had other stuff that was going on. That small cut, eventually it'll heal. You just heal slower when you get older, right? Yeah. But while that cut was open, while the skin and tissue were exposed, he got infected. That infection started to grow. By the time he sought medical care, the infection had grown so large, they amputated part of his foot. But that wasn't the end of it. That didn't stop the infection. It had taken hold so severely in his body, it took his life a short time later. Let's reiterate that. The small, slow-healing cut on his foot is what ended up taking his life because he didn't seek proper medical care. Now, part of it was that skin and tissue were torn and they were left open, leaving the dirt, germs, and bacteria a great opportunity to come into the body and party. So Jennifer Walker started Wound Care Associates of Colorado, and she vowed this should never happen to anybody else ever again. So they have changed how you approach chronic wounds. Here's what happens. You go to coloradowound.com, coloradowound.com, and set up your appointment with Wound Care Associates of Colorado. You don't have to worry about where their office is. No, don't worry about transportation. Don't worry about getting there, taking time off, because they come to you. How cool is that? It's concierge home care service without the price. Not only do they come to you, they set up a personalized treatment plan by their wound-certified nurse practitioner, and they will promote faster healing outcomes. They want your skin and tissue to close so that infection doesn't have even the slightest opportunity to get in access to your body. Doesn't that sound better than what happens most of the time when they try to maintain those wounds? It is. Don't mess around. I'm doing it right now. Someone in my life recently had surgery. The wound wasn't healing the way that we wanted it to. It was slow. And as soon as the doctor said, we will just maintain this for a while and see what happens. No, doc, we won't. I went to coloradowound.com, coloradowound.com that very afternoon and set up an appointment for my daughter. Now the results are wonderful. The wound is nearly closed in just a couple of weeks. Don't mess around. If someone in your life has a slow healing cut, a wound, Wound Care Associates of Colorado is the place to go. coloradowound.com. Check them out at coloradowound.com. This is the Jeff and Bill Show. We'll be back right after this. Let's talk about the Ukrainian deal, 303-696-1971. Are we extorting Ukraine? Are we taking something that isn't ours? And should the Ukrainians trust us that now we'll protect them? What do you think? 303-696-1971. This is the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. The U.S. and Ukraine inking out a deal with regards to mineral rights. Is this a good deal for America? Now, if you go back, there was this kind of moment around Kevin McCarthy when he said that in all of our wars, America has never sought to take land except enough to bury the Americans who gave the ultimate sacrifice for the freedom that we went in for. And I think like Condoleezza Rice and kind of Bush, those era folks kind of felt that way. We will give of our blood, we will give of our treasure to defend freedom and never ask for anything in return. Well, it's not actually kind of true. America has taken land lots of times when it's fought a war. How about the U.S.-Mexico War? We fought that, and we're like, we're taking Texas back. It belongs to us. In this case, the United States inking out a minerals deal 50-50 for minerals that are going to be developed out of Ukraine, putting together an investment fund to help rebuild Ukraine. But I got to say, I understand the altruism of the idea that America is going to sacrifice its sons and daughters and its treasure for the notion of freedom throughout the world. But now I sit on the other side of the Iraq and Afghanistan war, and I'm like, what the hell did we get out of it? I understand going into Afghanistan to go after the Taliban early on after 9/11. But oh my goodness, it was like $8 billion, if I remember correctly, was spent in Afghanistan. The minute we left, they're like, kick the girls out of school, and the Taliban's right back in control of it. And I lost friends in Iraq. Is there any big financial benefit pouring out of these countries for all the sacrifice that we made? I think America deserves to get something back. So in this case, I'm not so opposed to it. Your thoughts, Bill?
Well, with the Iraq and Afghanistan examples, neither of those two countries were invaded by an aggressor. And that's where this one is different for me, is we chose to go to Iraq and we chose to go to Afghanistan. This is a conflict that was chosen by Russia, and that has to be underlined, that Russia is the aggressor. Russia is trying to take pieces of another sovereign nation, a country that operates as a democracy and is an ally of the U.S. And if we are not going to step in and support our allies when they are invaded by an aggressor, a country that for decades has been an adversary of the U.S., despite how we are treating them now, Russia is an adversarial nation. And I have a deep, deep problem with letting any country, especially Russia, given that I grew up in the Cold War, take territory from an ally of the U.S. I've got a real problem with that. And the fact that we were supporting the war effort in Ukraine by not putting U.S. boots on the ground, that is significant for me. If what we are doing is spending money and providing support and also providing equipment, yeah, for me, that is a fantastic investment, because I would say that if we would have approached this, again, bad analogy, I will acknowledge that at the first, but if we could have supported the Kuwaitis maybe in the same instance, and they were the ones that were going to go in and take out Saddam, and we provide money, training, and equipment, we may have seen a different outcome than the U.S. going in there. If it was an uprising inside of Afghanistan and we supported them for a change as far as how they were, that would be something different. And that's sort of how I see this one. It's not a great exact analogy, but I see us supporting an ally and fighting Russia. And I've talked about it before, that at the end, the degradation of the Russian military, for me, has been money well spent, because the Russian military has lost lives. The Russian military has lost equipment. We haven't. We haven't at all. And if we can take one of our major global adversaries and degrade their military capacity by more than 1/3 by most estimates, that's a win.
Do you see, though, a country that's $36 trillion in debt, investing all these other resources and other conflicts around the world, even if there's a return on it, right? Don't you think it's smart of the United States to get some money back, considering the debt load we're taking on right now?
No, I don't, because that to me means that our allies are transactional. that this is only a transactional relationship, that we only support you as much as you can afford to pay us back. That, to me, that's almost a loan shark type of relationship. That's offering for a protection racket in the Bronx. I mean, you talk about, hey,
Man,
I'll come in here.
I see it as us being the suckers. If we're going to be the one out there policing the world, spending our resources, our tax dollars, and God forbid, the blood of our sons and daughters to try to keep peace in this world, and we're not getting anything financially back on it, that makes us suckers.
Now, why? Now, are we not supposed to be the leader of the free world? Are we not supposed to be the example? Do we want to be the most powerful nation on the planet? I understand not being the world's policeman, but we have asked to be, the leader. We have held ourselves up as the scion of decency and freedom, and that seems to be something we've leaned into. Right now, we've been talking about our military. Secretary Hegg says it's been denigrated, and earlier how much we're now back to being warriors. Grrr! But now we're only going to fight if you give us something? That's not warriors, that's mercenaries. That's mercenaries. That's what we do. If we're saying that we're going to go fight if you give us something back, we have become a nation of mercenaries. And then we need to start living by...
You don't work for free.
Yeah.
I don't work for free.
Yeah, I know. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like, that doesn't make us, mercenaries just because we expect.
Oh, yes, it does. 110%.
Expect to get paid.
Yes.
But that's the way the world works. And if we're in debt, and that's the debt that's going to be passed on to our children and grandchildren. So Americans are constantly paying the price for other people's freedoms. It's got to balance out the ledger a little bit. And look, if we had a bank over there with $1 trillion sitting into it, I might feel a little differently about sacrifice. But we're $36 trillion in debt. We've got to take care of our own. And I don't think it's being a mercenary to go, look, if we're the ones spending the money, we're the ones sacrificing, then you got to pay us back a little bit.
But that is the mercenary agreement. It's the idea of we are going to send our fighting troops here, and you're going to pay us in lieu of sending your own people. That's absolutely the mercenary. And I am a mercenary. Yep. I do bar trivia. The money is green and says USA on it. I will show up and run my mouth. Don't care. Yes, absolutely. I'm a mercenary. However, I do have volunteer opportunities and other choices inside of my life. And those are times in which I believe the cause and what I am doing supersedes the monetary engagement that we normally have. And for me, the role of the U.S., if we want to be the shining city on the hill and we want to be the leader of and I'm using this properly, the free world, then we probably need to support those other countries that are free, especially those that are our allies. If you're in a neighborhood and you've got a neighbor that's 7 doors down on the other side of the block, he's on the other side of the block and he's 7 doors down, don't have a lot of dealings with him, but you guys have said hello and you've talked a little bit and his house is on fire, you don't run over there and ask him how much you're going to pay me for me to bring my water over here. You go and you help him.
But the
because he's a
firefighters
friend.
aren't working for free.
But they don't charge the guy at his house. They don't come up and say,
they're
"Is a
not
check
working
clear?"
for free.
I know, but hang on. The firefighters, though, because of taxes and how we spread out the payment, the firefighters don't come up and ask for a check. And what I'm hearing from you is the U.S. says, "Hey, we'll come in and we'll put the fire out in your house, but first the check's got to clear."
No,
if the check doesn't clear, we're going home.
It's got to say there's got to be some type of financial benefit out of this. Otherwise, we're just going to continue to rack up debt, and it's our children and our grandchildren that are going to be paying for the freedom in other countries. And they need to step up, and there needs to be a benefit for the United States. Text message coming in, is NATO just a conglomeration of mercenaries?
No, NATO to me
and
is
when did
closer.
warfare become an act of philanthropy?
Yeah. Well, the thing for me is, okay, the act of philanthropy, the idea is, do you think we were being philanthropical during World War II? Because that wasn't until Pearl Harbor didn't come to our shores, but even then, the Japanese would have had a very difficult time invading the U.S. and taking over. So were we being philanthropic in that? Were we being philanthropic in World War I?
Well, we didn't get involved in World War II until it directly threatened us.
Oh, I know, but I'm saying when we did, though.
Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, but what I did, I addressed that though. I said, but a land invasion and Japan actually taking over here would have been incredibly difficult. Would have been incredibly difficult for them to accomplish. So the idea that we were on the brink of being taken over by Japan, no, they did attack us, yes, but were we being philanthropic when we got involved? No, not at all. And NATO to me is closer to the analogy of the firefighter. And Donald Trump is accurate that many NATO countries have not been paying what they should, and that has been a good positive of both terms in his administration, and that is a good sea change. I disagree with some of the ways he's going about it, but that I look at as the idea of the firefighter, that everybody's paying into the pool, everybody is sharing resources, and when something happens, you all go and put out the fire. And that's kind of the agreement between the allies. If it is a transactional relationship for the U.S. to come and help you when you need us, we're no longer really allies, are we? We're just the store.
We are.
No, we're not.
We're just not suckers.
No, we're just a store. We're just a store. We're mercenaries.
Isn't it better in the long term for us to have financial interests in Kiev? I think that's why they signed it, is because now there's a sense of stability. There's an investment from America in Ukraine. This isn't just charity. It's not just the UN people showing up in Somalia.
But why should they believe
this is now a financial relationship to where it is in our interest to maintain peace in Ukraine.
But it's not necessarily until we decide it's not, or until we decide we want it, or until we decide we want to give it to Russia. If Russia comes over and says, you know what, I'll give you twice the value of that land, we sell it to them. It'd be in our financial interest to give them the land based on the money, and it would lower our debt, and it would be money back to the American people. We would get stuff back. Should we sell it to Russia? No, we shouldn't and can't. And that's the issue. Is it can't be transactional, because as soon as you say your allies are this transactional relationship, they're no longer allies. That is a monetary relationship that is closer to a mercenary. That's the problem that I have with this. We're turning America into the world's mercenaries, and it's weird to say that we can't go out and spend this money helping Ukraine defend itself when we are also talking about we need to spend more and more and more money on our own military. It doesn't work that way.
Lots of text messages coming in. 5309. Boys, what's the difference between a mercenary and a prostitute?
The things they will do when the lights go out. Just going to say.
I felt like that was a slow-pitch softball to Bill.
Yes, exactly.
I'll let you take that one.
You can hear Jeff pause.
I don't know either of them, actually.
Yes.
So I guess,
Yes.
Have you ever taken an ambulance? You'll get the bill.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem. Yeah, because here it's assumed risk, and in other countries you don't have that bill. And so that is a function of our system. Our healthcare system does go more to the pay area rather than the full coverage area. Yeah, absolutely.
7201, we could take advantage of part of Ukraine and give the rest to Putin, which is exactly what should happen. Huh.
Should.
Yeah,
Really?
they say should.
Why should we? And I'm curious, I'd love to hear from the text here why we should give any of Ukraine to Putin. And if so, if you think that we should be giving some of the land to Ukraine, how much of the rest of Eastern Europe do we need to give him? And he wants part of Western Europe. Should we give him Poland? Should we give him Austria? How far should his borders, if it's based on what Russia wants?
Bill, if you're going to go in that direction, how far should we fight to defend it the other direction? Are you willing to give up your sons and daughters in this war? Give us a call. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Is it good for the United States to be negotiating these deals to get some type of financial benefit out of the money we're spending in Ukraine? Is this a form of mercenary relationship now and not good for our allies? Love to have you join the conversation. Look, reliability isn't optional when business security is on the line. It's essential. And businesses trust alarm detection systems for the highest level of service and expertise. Think about the time you could be saving using one source for cameras, keycard access, fire, and intrusion systems. ADS offers expert alarm installation and testing by highly trained technicians, 24/7 professional monitoring, same-day and next-day service upon request because downtime isn't an option, dedicated teams for cameras, access control, and fire alarms, and over 300 security professionals working for you. Guys, we got to be honest here. It is not easy to run a business in Colorado. And the way we have to deal with crime You got to protect your business. You got to push it to the next level. That's alarm detection systems, trusted by small and large businesses, including many Colorado schools. They're combining human monitoring with the latest AI camera technology to prevent crime in real time. So schedule your free review today. Go to adsalarm.com. adsalarm.com. Alarm detection systems, the first choice of Front Range and Colorado businesses. adsalarm.com. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Man.
Y'all better be ready for this because we got Barney joining the Jeff and Bill show. Good morning,
Yes.
Barney.
Barney needs that kind of intro.
Good. That's awesome. Good morning.
Morning.
You guys give me way too much credit. Let's go back to the firemen and the house burning at the end of your road. So if the house at the end of the road, 9 houses down, is burning to the ground, and it's a meth lab, and there's no humans involved, or no pets, no dogs, no cats. By the way, Billy, no hamsters. You let it burn to the ground. How about that? So if I haven't looked up mercenary in a long time, but I'm pretty sure I think of a mercenary as anybody that will go to another country to kill whatever that country thinks is a bad guy. I don't necessarily agree with that per se. I mean, it is what it is. But going back to Ukraine, I think for once it's kind of nice not to have these pukes in the CIA starting a war, starting conflict, starting their bull crap. So I think this is a good thing. This is how you do it. Okay, Zelensky, and I don't think he was wearing his pajamas this time. Hey, buddy, if you sign a deal with us, Russia will leave you the F alone. I'm pretty sure of that. Russia really got their butt handed to them in this. They thought they'd come in there and wipe that country out in a week, and it didn't happen.
Well,
Not so
Barney,
much.
got a question for you. I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Back in the mid-'90s, we signed a security agreement with Ukraine. They said Rory O'Neill had outlined this earlier. They had over 1,000 nuclear missiles, and part of that was left over from the arsenal when the former Soviet Union collapsed. They made an agreement with the U.S. and other nations for border security in exchange for giving up those nuclear weapons. They gave up the weapons, and now we're telling them that not only is it okay that Russia invaded, but they have to give up part of their country. Why would they ever believe us based on security before? We already told them we would provide it, and we didn't.
Right. Hey, buddy, we've cut and run. Look at Afghanistan. You can go back through history. We always cut and run. But there's been a lot of corruption between that agreement and what's forward. But on the other hand, this whole thing, if I'm not mistaken, started the U.S. got this bright, wild idea that we're going to put missiles on your border. And Russia said, no, you're not. And it's just like us. If Cuba, we saw what happened. I know that was a long time ago, but no, you're not going to stick your missiles on my country or on my border. And by the way, look at when we talk about NATO, they're not our friends. They're not our backup. You get in a bar fight, it's just like getting in a bar. You run your mouth. You're going to get your butt kicked, but you think you've got all your buddies to help you. We don't have NATO for anything. I mean, they did show up a little at the French and Canadian, you name it, the British. But the bottom line is it's on us. So it's just time. You're either going to do it our way or the highway. And I don't know. There's been a ton of corruption in that country. So let's see what happens now. That's all I'm saying.
The issue is, I understand the idea there is some corruption inside of Ukraine, but compared to Russia, I mean, again, it's not even close to being analogous. And that's the idea is we are, and Ukraine is an ally. And I understand your idea of the meth lab burning down at the thing, but unless you're involved in production of that meth lab, unless they are an ally or a friend, you don't care about that meth lab. But Ukraine isn't a meth lab. Ukraine is a friend of ours. They are an ally. We were talking about NATO membership, but they were as close to being a NATO member without actually being a NATO member. And I really do not care if Russia wants missiles on their border or not. I don't. As the U.S., I don't. And it also, if we were talking about putting missiles in Ukraine, that doesn't mean it's okay for Russia to go ahead and invade them. That is not the acceptable solution.
But Billy, he said, look, he's not our friend. No, you can't trust him, blah, blah, blah. But he said, you can't say for 1 second that these twerps in the CIA were tweaking this all along. Like, no, we're going to shove these missiles up your butt, Russia.
Brady, I hate to do this. We have to go, but you got to end it there. I love that one. That's the perfect way to end it, Barney.
I love
You're
it,
the
Barney.
best.
You're listening to Jeff and Bill.
This is KNUS.
It's 8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Thursday, May 1st, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. We're talking the mineral deal between the United States and Ukraine. Is this good for the United States? We've invested a lot of money into defending Ukraine. We need to recoup some of it. We're $36 trillion in debt. Fighting wars for other people is not an act of charity. There's real costs associated to it, and it's not upon us, our children and grandchildren, to assume this debt. And even if it's good, altruistic, defending Ukraine from Russia, can we work out a deal to at least recoup some of the costs through mineral rights? Or has America always defended freedom and only asked for land to bury our dead? What do you think? Let's go to the phone lines. Dave and Divide. Good morning, Dave. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hey, good morning.
Morning, guys. Let's see. I know you guys said that we took Mexico, but I think it was more like General Santa Anna ceded Mexico on to us in order to save his life. After the Alamo, everybody was pretty uptight about how he slaughtered everyone. So after the Battle of San Jacinto, they caught him and they said, look, here's your choice, buddy. You either give us Mexico or you're dead. And in order to save his weaselly life, this was a guy who would slaughter his own people. He gave us Mexico. So, and then like Ukraine and Russia go back, part of Ukraine helped the Germans. Part of them are Russians, and let's face it, Obama, he got Crimea under Obama.
Yeah, that was awful.
And remember, the Russians have been invaded. When Napoleon tried it, they made it all the way to Moscow. Didn't work. I think he took like 400,000 soldiers. By the time they got back, they were lucky. I think 30,000 French soldiers made it back. Hitler did the same thing. So I think, and looking at the woke West and the way Biden pulled himself out of Afghanistan. I mean, I told your screener the Boy Scouts could have done a better withdrawal. I mean, why not go into Ukraine? And I think also this mineral deal is awesome, but it's also Trump's way of saying, hey, Russia, the ties are getting a little tighter between us and Ukraine. And right now they're celebrating May Day over there. The end of World War II. They're having a ceasefire because it's for a few days because Russia's doing their May Day celebrations. And, this gives him a chance. Putin needs to save face. He doesn't want to look to his people like, hey, because of the Trumpster, Trump wins and this is the end of it. So
I got a question for you, Dave. I got a question because the idea that you're saying that the mineral deal brings the U.S. closer to Ukraine, but does it? And what I'm challenging on that is that we had the USMCA, which is supposed to be a trade deal between Canada and Mexico that Trump signed, and now he says it's awful. He said that under the trade deal that he negotiated and signed, we are being taken advantage of. So now that deal is null and void, and he's going back on the terms of the deal. Also, Trump is talking about what he's getting from other countries. So with this transactional nature in our foreign policy, what prevents Putin coming in and just telling Trump, I'll give you a better deal. All those land rights you want in Ukraine, I'll give you a better percentage. I'll give you more of them. I'll give you a better percentage. All you got to do is change the flag that country flies. Why would Trump not take the better deal if this is all about deals?
Well, I don't think it is. I think it's more about, hey, Trump is saying, I've got to show Putin that, if he doesn't make a deal soon, and, you can't trust Russia. These are the guys who poison people, and Putin's not the nicest guy in the world.
But
if you're a political enemy,
isn't that the whole thing? I mean, if you look at the negotiations so far, the reports are that the negotiator that Trump is sending to go to Moscow doesn't even bring along any attachés. They use Russian translators from the Kremlin during the conversations. The U.S. has no native translators in negotiations for this war. This is a problem. This is a huge problem.
You can't trust him, you cannot trust Putin. So he's just trying to make it to where Putin sees there's the writing on the wall. The screws are tightening a little.
Yeah, and at this
also
point, Putin's responding, going, "Oh, wait, hold on, guys. It seems like this is moving a little too fast for us. A little too fast." I think Trump's getting frustrated with Putin.
Oh, and another thing, back in the day, like in Chicago, when Mrs. O'Leary's cow and all that started the fire, the Great Chicago Fire, you used to have to pay, if you wanted your house protected, you had to become part of a local fire district or whatever, and pay to have if the fire was on the other side of the block that wasn't protected, your house might burn. So I don't know, things have gotten better, I guess, as
Dave, I appreciate your knowledge of history.
Dave,
that was fun.
That was really cool.
Appreciate the call.
Yeah,
Dave from Divide.
Cool.
Phone line is open. 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. We're talking the UK, Russia, America, well, at least the Ukraine, American minerals deal that was signed where we're going to split 50-50. Some of the precious minerals are coming out of Ukraine. It's just good. We spent a lot of time, a lot of blood, a lot of treasure in Afghanistan and Iraq. I don't think we got a single thing out of it. I understand America has sacrificed a lot over the years to advance freedom, but when you're $36 trillion in debt, is it worth constantly fighting other people's wars in the name of freedom and putting the debt burden upon our children and grandchildren, or should we be able to get some type of repayment back out of it?
Yeah,
I think so.
We should get some repayment. We need to tax Musk more. Yeah, tax the rich people. Get the payment back. Okay, I'm being facetious.
Speaking of Elon Musk, is he going to be heading out of Tesla? We'll be covering that as well. But now it's time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good Thursday morning, 45 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 60 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
This administration is also fighting to get critical race theory out of our school districts. Children will be taught to love America. Children will be taught to be patriots. Children will be taught civic values for schools that want federal taxpayer funding.
Bringing back patriotism. Dose of Stephen Miller this morning. Last night, FBI Denver special agents arrested Juan Gabriel Arona Rodriguez, who faces federal charges related to distributing cocaine. Arona Rodriguez is a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army, the DEA Rocky Mountain Field Division, the Department of the Army Criminal Investigation Division, and officials at Fort Carson participated in assisting the investigation, and Arona Rodriguez will be in court today, and they're not saying this is related to the huge raid at the underground nightclub in the Springs, but let's put two and two together, and that equals 4 tattoos above the knuckles. The DEA previously reported there were 17 active duty military inside the club overnight Sunday morning. The Biden administration was so corrupt, just full of America haters who wanted to censor Secretary of State Marco Rubio in the cabinet meeting.
We had an office in the Department of State whose job it was to censor Americans. And by the way, I'm not going to say who it is. I'll leave it up to them. There's at least one person at this table today who had a dossier in that building of social media posts to identify them as purveyors of disinformation. We have these dossiers. We are going to be turning those over to these individuals.
Me or Elon? We can follow up with the media.
Well, we are going to turn over these dossiers to the individuals, and they'll decide whether they want to disclose it or not. But just think about the Department of State of the United States had set up an office to monitor the social media posts and commentary of American citizens to identify them as vectors of disinformation, when we know that the best way to combat disinformation is freedom of speech and transparency. And so that's what we're going to be in the business of doing. We're not going to have an office that does that.
Marco Rubio doing a great job. House Republicans advancing legislation supporting 47's immigration policies. The House Judiciary Committee approved a measure along party lines that would fund the deportation of 1 million illegals each year. The bill also includes $45 billion to detain 100,000 individuals who are here illegally. VP J.D. Vance cast a tie-breaking vote in the Senate last night to kill a resolution that would undo DJT's trade policy. The Senate rejected a resolution that would have revoked Trump's power to impose global tariffs. The Senate Majority Leader then moved to ensure that the tariff opponents would not be able to challenge Trump's power at a later date. Hey, look at this. Tampon Tim reminiscing on Wednesday.
Walking through the park and reminiscing.
Anything, I think it's fair to go back on and look at this. Look, we had the most qualified person who'd run for president in this country's history at the top of the ticket. That in itself should have got this thing going. We had, in my opinion, and you can disagree with me, I think history will prove me right, a very unqualified person on the other side.
Wait a minute. So he's...
No, he's
yes,
called
he said
Kamala
a guy,
Harris the most qualified person.
And a guy who was
ever?
president for 4 years. Yeah, ever. Man, this dude, it just goes. I don't know if it gets more absurd. Let me hear. Let me listen.
And you have to determine, how do you get those hits? What was the best way? Did it make sense to continue to, call him weird or call that out, or make this pitch that we are significantly different and our policies can improve your lives? And there's people that make those decisions, and whether it's right or wrong or not, I guess history will.
You literally picked the person that was a continuation of the disastrous policies of the previous administration, and then that same person, who is the, quote, most qualified person,
yes,
was all about providing sex change operations, taxpayer-funded sex change operations for illegal immigrant prisoners. You want to talk about like a breakdown of trust in institutions that people have?
Yes.
It's that right there, where
No
you go,
doubt.
she's the most qualified person to be the president of the United States. All right, what does she want to do? Taxpayer-funded sex change operations for illegal immigrant prisoners? That's what the most qualified person gets us?
Mm-hmm. And they vote for him in Minnesota.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we vote for Polis here in Colorado, so
yes,
we can't
no,
say
it's an
anything.
intelligence issue.
God, that is...
It's not just the Canadians, Blake.
No, you're right. Absolutely incredible.
Believe me. No, I mean, I want to take a moment of personal privilege because I listened to hours of this testimony yesterday of some of the most ludicrous testimony in this radical trans bill. Okay?
Yeah.
That is a direct threat to parental rights. It's a direct threat to freedom of speech. Democrats even know that. They're trying to amend this thing because the minute it passes, it's going to get killed by the U.S. Supreme Court.
Jeez.
And yet, in spite of all of this, voters will still go vote them back into office. These are people that are drunk down at the state capitol. They're playing video games instead of working. They're disregarding
porn.
their constituents. I mean, you often joked about, or the left would joke Donald Trump could shoot somebody and still be elected president. Or even Donald Trump kind of joked about that at one point. All right, we're in that space right now, but with Democrats.
Yes.
Where they can pass the most ludicrous bills. They're drunk at work. They're playing video games. They'll threaten your constitutional rights, parental rights. They'll literally destroying the state, and they'll still get elected back into office.
It's gross. It is, boy. What a great point. Great points. It's hard to wake up and stare that Capitol, in the morning and just look at it and say, "Oh, I'm proud to be a Coloradan." Unbelievable. The Trump administration is reportedly in talks with Libya and Rwanda to take illegals with criminal records from the U.S. The State Department spokesperson would only tell CNN that the department is working globally to implement the Trump administration's immigration policies. Well, a woman recognized as the oldest person is dead at the age of 116 years old. Once again, Sister Ina Cabero Lucas died Wednesday in Brazil. 42 in Superior, 43 in Sedalia, 45 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
That warms my heart, particularly as a black man.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It'll be a cloudy, cool start to your day here in Denver with areas of morning light rain showers. Then there will be a couple of afternoon showers and isolated thunderstorms, highs 50s and lows 60s. Showers ending tonight, lows near 40 degrees. Sunny, nice day Friday, 60s, near 40 Friday night, warming to the 70s and sunny Saturday. 70s and sunny Sunday, but Sunday afternoon and evening, thunderstorms likely. Showers and thunderstorms likely Monday. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Well, exclusive coming from the Wall Street Journal yesterday that the Tesla board has opened search for a CEO to succeed Elon Musk. They say about a month ago, with Tesla stock sinking and some investors irritated about Elon Musk's White House focus, the Tesla board got serious about looking for Musk's successor. Board members reached out to several executive search firms to work on a formal process for finding Tesla's next chief executive. Finding Tesla's next chief executive and funding. But according to people familiar with the discussion, tensions had been mounting at the company. Sales and profits were deteriorating rapidly. Musk was spending much of his time in Washington. Around that time, Tesla's board met with Musk for an update. Board members told him he needed to spend more time on Tesla, according to people familiar with the meeting, and he needed to say so publicly. Musk didn't push back. Tesla had been on a losing streak in the months since Musk, its visionary chief executive, began spending much of his time helping President Trump slash federal spending. Last week, after the company said its first quarter profits had plunged 71%, Musk told investors he would soon pivot back to his job at Tesla. Starting next month, he said on a conference call about earnings, I'll be allocating far more of my time to Tesla. Now, Tesla, late last night, responding. Earlier today, there was a media report erroneously claiming that the Tesla board had contacted recruitment firms to initiate a CEO search at the company. This is absolutely false, and this was communicated to the media before the report was published. So they went to the Wall Street Journal and said, no, this is absolutely false. This isn't right. But the Wall Street Journal published anyways. The CEO of Tesla is Elon Musk, and the board is highly confident in his ability to continue executing on the exciting growth plan ahead. Bill, what is going on here, you think?
This the thing is, I know that Tesla is saying, no, this is not true. But I would assume that any board at that time, if you're talking about moving out, someone that's a CEO, and if you're in the first part of searching, if the CEO hasn't officially left, would do this as well. It would seem PR. And again, I am giving the Wall Street Journal just the benefit of the doubt because I'm going to assume, I don't make this assumption with all media outlets, but with some of the larger ones, based on their exposure, they should be able to back up some of the story. I'm assuming they've got more than just one tweet, that they have had conversations and people that have connections and are saying this is now. Do I believe the board is doing an active search? No. But do I believe there are discussions within the board? That seems logical because Elon Musk is becoming toxic. Elon Musk's brand, and I mean that not Tesla, not anything else, but him just being Elon Musk, when he used to be viewed as the next Thomas Edison or Henry Ford or Albert Einstein or whoever the hell you wanted to be. Instead of that, he's now becoming toxic. He's becoming closer to someone like Dr. Doom or Thanos. And that's the problem, is that when his brand and who he is becomes toxic to the culture and to the society, then you're not going to buy his cars. And that's a problem. And the most recent example, not most recent, but one of the ones that the audience may remember is Papa John's. Remember now, the guy, Papa John, the guy that was the CEO, made a comment, and this is the thing, is it was a fairly innocuous comment about healthcare and wages and his workers. And because that was viewed so negatively by the customers and the employees, he was pushed out. He was viewed as toxic to the company, and the company had to put together a marketing plan in order to try to rebuild their image. And if you talk right now, the Tesla image, it's awful. When you're looking at, and the U.S. is a little bit of a different market, but internationally, no one's buying Teslas. No one wants to buy Teslas. Now, again, it's a survey of less than 1,000 people, but mathematically it can hold up fairly correctly. But inside of Germany, they found out that 95% of the residents would never buy a Tesla. Never, ever. Now, that can change here in a couple of years, but given where they are now, that's the view of this brand. And that's going to be a problem, especially when he's got other EV makers out there that are hard charging and in some cases doing stuff that Tesla can't or has been promising for years and is never delivered. He is becoming toxic. And if he is so closely associated to Tesla, yeah, you move him off. You move him off.
So, look, I understand the board, especially if you're at that level, you have a fiduciary responsibility to shareholders, right? There's a tremendous responsibility. And when you're dealing with a CEO that has a lot of demands, wears a lot of hats, and there's questions about whether or not he can deliver for a particular company, you might go start looking. But the idea that Elon Musk has had issues with boards is not new at all. In fact, he's lost at least 2 companies that he founded because of similar issues with boards. And believe me, I know this very well, dealing with boards, okay?
Yes, you do.
They oftentimes get very skittish, and they start looking purely at bottom line issues, and they go, well, we got to change. And they want a manager in, and visionaries do not work well with managers. They don't. And if you read the biography on Elon Musk by Walter Isaacson, a lot of tension, constant battles, big fights, anytime you try to really manage Elon Musk, because he's just not the type of guy that can be managed. So, does Elon Musk have to fix some stuff? Absolutely. I mean, that stock is not doing well. He's the CEO. There are investors involved. He's got to address it. He's got to fix it. Does that mean taking time away from Doge? He's even said so. In May, I'm probably going to take a step back. I got to work. This is a guy that for 20 years was the CEO of Tesla, slept many years in his office just trying to fix things. So I trust he can fix things. But this isn't shocking. This isn't news, a headline breaking that there's a board issue with Elon Musk. It's happened before. I think boards are wrong to panic and try to replace Elon Musk with some type of manager that's just going to kind of keep the lights on and keep things moving. They got to work with Elon Musk to press through, but I imagine there were probably a board member or two. There's only 8 of them, but a board member or two that was like, oh, golly, gee, we've got to figure this out, and maybe we should go talk to another headhunting company to see about a new CEO. But this has happened multiple times to Elon Musk. He comes through it. Bet on Elon Musk. That's my recommendation.
Really? You said that Elon can fix things. Can he? How are you convinced that he can fix things at Tesla? Track record?
Yeah, track record. He's done that before. It's not like Elon Musk was, or Tesla was this amazing company that he came in and ruined. This was a company that was essentially nothing. He bought it. He didn't, and then changed it and made it the most successful electric car company in the world for many years. It's having some issues now. I trust that he'll fix it. If I was on the board, I'd absolutely bet on Elon Musk.
Is this the same situation as before? And the reason I asked
That's
that
a fair question.
is Elon's brand tarnished? You may have full faith that he can right the ship and make the right decisions, but if Elon Musk is viewed as a toxic person and a toxic brand, how do you persuade consumers? How do you change the course? Because Tesla is a front-facing, consumer-driven company.
Sure.
He has to get consumers. He's not business to business. He's business to consumer. And so he has to have the consumer buy-in for who they are. And right now, he doesn't. His brand himself is viewed as toxic. And that would be like the idea of, let's say this, okay, again, it's going to be the day of horrible analogies for Bill. So let's just say that for whatever reason, Tesla makes the announcement today and say, yes, we have made a change in Tesla. We are announcing our new CEOs. It's such a big job. We need 2 of them. Introducing the Tate brothers. Ta-da! They're running Tesla. That's a toxic brand. Just the fact that you would associate them with your brand would be viewed as toxic. And again, they're never going to be named that, but that's what I'm looking at is Elon, you may think that he has this skill, but how does he change his perception? And is that too large of a hill for him to climb? And if it's not, how does he accomplish it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. As Breadman points out here, does Elon's reputation speak more to leftist propaganda than his own problems himself? Look, Elon Musk is risking it. I'm not going to discount that by aligning himself so closely with Trump, by taking an active role, cutting out funding with major parts of the federal government.
Yeah.
All that stuff. He is definitely creating enemies. Definitely creating enemies. Very powerful enemies. They're going to want to try to ruin him. Can he recover from it? I think so. Because I've seen him build things in the past, face really big challenges. When you look at some of the early days of PayPal, some of his other companies, early days of Tesla, these were things, moments where it was stacked against him. The cards were stacked against him. It seemed nearly impossible. It's almost kind of like Trump's return to a second term. By a lot of reasoning, you go, wow, there's no way he's going to recover from this. But when you look at the men themselves, these are men that have incredible perseverance. I think they can respond and recover. Do I have a formula? No, I don't have a formula. I don't think I'm not the type of guy that I think could put together even a formula for these guys to respond. But knowing their personalities and knowing the type of men they are and how they've beaten the odds in the past, I think it would be wrong for Tesla to replace Elon Musk.
Well, see, I think they have to, because he is such a toxic brand right now. And that's the problem, is that you talk about him coming through it, but he has never been the problem front-facing for the consumers. In fact, he was viewed as an asset. And I would challenge Breadman on the idea of the propaganda machine from the left. Elon owns his own social media company. He has a huge voice. He has expressed things that some of his core Tesla consumers disagree with. He has retweeted conspiracy theorists. He has given voice to people that others disagree with vehemently on political and cultural issues. That's not propaganda. Elon Musk has his own. The left propaganda machine isn't larger than him in his own space where he owns Twitter. So I disagree with Breadman at the core that this is all about liberal propaganda. Elon Musk has been loud enough. $250 million in the Trump campaign, that's not liberal propaganda. Handing out $1 million for people to sign a petition that supports the conservative values in other states, that's not propaganda. That is 110% Elon, and that's who he is. So now can he run that company that way? And I can see the Trump analogy, but remember that Trump got less than 50% of the total votes that were cast in the last election. He's the winner, but he had one competitor, Kamala, and that was a severely damaged brand. In the world of EVs and automotive choices, he doesn't have that same challenge. He doesn't have that same advantage unless he's going against Stellantis. They're the ones that are the absolute toilet bowl of the automotive industry right now. If he only had to compete against Stellantis, then Tesla's got a shot. But when you're going against BYD, you got a serious full-time competitor. When Rivian and Genesis are doing what they're doing right now, you've got a serious competitor. Toyota, they're not effing around. Hyundai, Kia, they're not effing around on EVs. Mercedes, BMW, they're coming for you too. This is not Donald Trump versus
He's already beat
Kamala.
them before. He's already beat them before. You don't think he
No.
can do it again?
No, he's not beating BYD right now.
Well, not right now, but
No,
in
but-
the past he has.
but BYD
at
wasn't
one
the same.
point, Tesla was the most successful electric car company in the world.
Yes, and that was before he had major competition. And now he has competition.
Yeah.
And this is the difference between Donald Trump running against Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump running against 30 other candidates. And Tesla, Donald Trump needed to get the most majority of the votes. However, for the company to succeed, all the other votes can go to all those other candidates. And that still erodes the total number of votes that Donald Trump would receive. So Donald Trump could feasibly, in a group of 40 different candidates, Donald Trump could receive a significantly fewer number of votes than he did in this last election, and that would harm his profitability, that would harm his standing, and it wouldn't necessarily make him the most successful politician in that group. That's the problem, is it's not a binary
But
choice for him.
I think the board and any board that gets nervous and is like, well, let's just bring in a guy to manage. Let's bring in an MBA, that type of thing. Oh, man, that's the death knell. That is what ends up killing these companies because you need somebody as aggressive that can persevere, that can rescue astronauts. That's the type of guy you need to push through, and it's going to be a little uncomfortable, but I say you still bet on Elon. If you were a board member right now, here's the question I'd like to have. If you were a board member, is it time to replace Elon Musk as CEO? Is he too toxic? Did he, as some of these text messages say, go out of his way to alienate his core consumer? And you, as the fiduciary responsibility to tax or to shareholders, believe you have to replace him? Or do you double down on Elon?
And I'll add one more thing to that.
Yep.
If you're on that board and some of your core consumers are putting stickers on your product that disagree with your CEO, how long do you keep them?
Good question, Bill. Phone lines are open. Join the conversation at 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law Text line at 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. Hey, I want to talk to you. While Bill and I may disagree about lots of things, we both agree that the good people in agriculture producing the food on your table are worth supporting. You do that
Hell
through
yes.
the Colorado Farm Bureau.
They are so important to Colorado. You've got to support the farmers in the Colorado Farm Bureau. It's a wonderful organization. Listen to what Jeff's telling you right now, because these are the people that are putting the food
That's
on
exactly
your
right.
table.
It doesn't
means so
come
much
from
to
a
us.
grocery store. It comes from ag, and it passes through a grocery store. All right, so support the good people of Colorado agriculture by signing up for the Colorado Farm Bureau. Not only are they working on food, they're working on water, right? And they are working and pulling together farmers and ranchers along with policymakers to address the water challenges our state's facing so that you have future water resources. The people of Colorado agriculture always have conservation, efficiency, and reuse top of mind when it comes to water use. As the metro area continues to grow, the Colorado Farm Bureau leads talks with state policymakers about preserving water for all areas of the state as pressure on the water system grows, and it's going to take all of us to find a solution. My friends at the Colorado Farm Bureau are leaders in water conservation and water policy. They understand how to balance water for crops and water for families, and they're doing more with less. You can do your part. I recommend you join and become a member today. Go to coloradofarmbureau.com. That's coloradofarmbureau.com to join them. We'll continue. Phone calls coming in. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. The Wall Street Journal leading yesterday with the headline, Tesla board open search for a CEO to succeed Elon Musk. Tesla responding via X, no, that's not happening at all. We're very happy with Elon Musk, and we're not planning to change anything.
What are the chances Elon posted that himself on and just pretending to? He has to control the account and just posted that himself on his own social media site. Could happen. Just saying. Just saying.
Did he have an alter ego on X? I know some folks
Yeah, he does. He
said
two. I don't
Carlos
remember.
Danger was one of them.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember. He's had a couple, and there's even there have been some vocal recordings out there where he's trying to alter his voice, but his speech pattern gives him away, and you can easily tell that it's him. But he's in these conversations supporting how great Elon is, which and don't make me go down that dark rabbit hole of how he lied to the video game community about how good he was at video games.
Dude, he is good at video games.
No, he's not. He sucks.
Even his biographers talk about
sucks.
He's almost obsessed with video games.
His biographers don't do their research. And again, I'm not sitting here throwing rocks at him because I am potato. I'm awful. I am a huge albatross. If you get me into your fire team on some of these video games, I will do more harm than good to the team goals. I'm not saying I'm a fantastic video gamer. I enjoy it. There are certain things I'm good at, but no. But I am self-aware. I don't go out and pay other people to boost my gaming so that I can go onto social media and pretend that I'm some sort of stud. That's another sort of fallacy and flaw.
If you're a board member right now and you've got a fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders of Tesla, do you vote to keep him and work through these challenges? Do you go out there and try to find a manager to help Elon? I only point out that has failed multiple times in the past with other companies. Elon, not a guy you can manage. You can't bring in a little Harvard MBA and expect it to work with Elon. And in the past, those companies that tried to push Elon out, even companies he founded, when the boards got nervous, ended up regretting it. And Elon Musk has gone on to great success. So, what do you think? Let's go to the phone lines. Frank, Denver, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, guys. How you guys?
Good. How are you today?
Hey, I want to go back 250 years, Billy, and ask you a question. If you're living back at the time of the Revolutionary War, which we're about to celebrate 250 years of, would you see yourself as a patriot or a loyalist?
Here's the thing. I can't. This is the difficult part, Frank, and I really appreciate that one because, of course, the fact that I love America and my upbringing tells me that I believe that I would be part of the revolutionary, especially because of the way that I'm wired. I'm not I like to swim against the current. That's just kind of how I've been hardwired. I'm always the person that asks the why not rather than the why. It's just been, so I always tend to try, as you can hear on the radio show, even the vice president of programming in Salem calls me the problem child in the Salem media family. And so I have been that agitator. However, I don't know what my circumstances would be like back then if perhaps I had a wonderful business that derived a lot of success and gave my family a good living standard based on my association with the crown. I may not be the revolutionary. So I don't think that I can tell you one way or another without being in that situation. I would tend to believe how I'm wired. I'd be on the more revolutionary side, but I can't discount the fact that is more my ideals about knowing how the conflict turned out influencing it. So I'm not sure intellectually I could really give you an honest answer. I know where my feelings are, man, but does that make sense that I don't know exactly what would happen unless I was there? Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, and thank you for your honest answer. I think that's true according to your wiring. I'm going to give you the Patriots' answer back then. Our lives, our fortune, and our sacred honor. That's what they pledged for a promise of a better way of living at that time against a big king and a country who were suppressing them. And I think that's the picture that I'd like for Americans to reframe this in, not just the local moment, not just the Harvard MBAs and whoever's running Tesla now for the bottom line money, but looking at the bigger picture. I think that's what both Trump and Musk are trying to do with making this country more efficient. Because what we've got now is a country full of sunshine patriots, and they've been riding on all the goodies that America has produced through all its hard work and the many lives lost in war and defending freedom over the 250 years. But now we've got some tough times, and the rats are jumping the ship, and they're afraid when they're 401ks go down a little bit. And what I think Trump and Musk are looking at is a bigger picture with a more efficient government for the promise of a better future.
Now, I got a question for you, Frank, on that one. During the run-up to the election, did you hear either Trump or Musk talk about this being the way to achieve that better future? Did they say pain? We're going to have some pain, maybe even pushing the economy into a small recession for a period of time. And this is going to hurt, but oh boy, is it going to be great on the other end. Or did they promise on day one to lower prices, that Trump's inauguration was the dawning of a great new American golden age, and that the turnaround in the economy was going to be immediate? Which promises were we given on the campaign trail?
You mean when they were in their political phase of saying whatever they needed to do to get elected?
Well, I'm just saying that they laid down expectations and said, this is what we are going to do. And now they seem to be doing something different. This is what I'm having a hard time squaring in my mind, is the idea that Donald Trump said, everything's going to be great. Day one, new American golden age. And that was even the announcement on the inauguration. And now I'm hearing, ooh, we've got to go through some pain for some time. And this was about complaining about the economy, that I couldn't buy things. Rents were out of control. And now that in many cases are getting worse. And people are going, oh, this is just what we got to do. That's what Trump has got to do. Bleh. That's not what we were promised. That's not what he campaigned on. It would be different if he said it's going to be a difficult time of transition and then this will happen. But he cut out all of this pain, and I believe that we are rationalizing to ourselves by saying, oh, well, we just got to go through this pain and then we'll come out on the other end. We have no guarantees that coming out on the other end will be better. Smoot Hawley thought that the tariffs were going to be a great thing. It didn't turn out that way, but I'm certain those two gentlemen were convinced to their core that they were going to usher in a new American golden age. And I'm afraid we're making the same mistake again. Your thoughts?
I'm afraid that in our current political situation, you have to become a politician for some time to sway the electorate to win a legitimate election, to get what you want for the country, which you dearly love, in the long run. And I'm afraid that they probably were guilty of not pushing the hard part, that if you ask any successful person in this country, whether it's doctor, lawyer, entrepreneur, the pain and the struggle that they had to go through, not for some years, to achieve what they wanted to for success. In the end, they became successful, but you don't see the many years of hard work. And that's what we as Americans are faced with, whether we're willing to go through some of that to do what's ultimately right for this country.
Got a question for you, Frank. What would you think? Let's say that there's you got a doctor, and the doctor is saying that your left knee is shot. You need a knee replacement. And he said, Frank, show up at the office 2 weeks from now, and we're going to get you a new knee. And you're like, great. And he goes, you won't believe it, man. On Wednesday, you're going to walk. It's going to feel wonderful. It's going to be fantastic. You're going to be running miles by next weekend. You show up on that day, and they say, okay, here, we're prepping you for surgery. We're going to do this, and it's going to be a 6-month rebuild, and it's going to be this, and you're not going to be able to do this for another 12 months. Would you go, Doc, that's not what you promised me. You promised me new knee, and then I would be running out of this office the very next day. And now you're talking about rehab? Now you're talking about cutting my bones? Now you're talking to me about potential infection and how I can lose my life? You're talking to me now about the risks of anesthesia? Now, Doc? Aren't we going through the same thing?
It's called informed consent, and I think a doctor has a duty, as does any business person of their who earns their way and their salt, to inform a person who's going through something that can be a threat to them of the potential harm, and that's what they're supposed to do. I think most of them in today's litigious climate try to underpromise and overdeliver rather than overpromise and underdeliver. So I think that politicians have carved out a unique niche for them. Why do they have it that they can invest in stocks that the average person cannot without penalty? Why do they have it that they can lie?
Because they make the rules.
That's right.
Yeah.
That they can lie on the floor of the House or the Senate, like our friend Schiff, and without
not the only
penalty.
one. Yeah.
He's not the only one.
Yeah.
Frank,
and that's sad.
Frank, I appreciate the call. We got to get to a
that's good,
break
Greg. I
here.
appreciate
We'll
that.
continue. Phone lines are open. 303-696-1971. Is Elon Musk the right guy to continue to lead Tesla? You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Boy, the text messages are hot on this one. If you were a member of the board of trustees for Tesla, would you vote to keep Elon Musk around? Or do you have a fiduciary responsibility to your shareholders? He's got to go. We're down 71% in this quarter. And how much of a lead time do you give him? Let's go back to the phone lines. I think if we got some time here, Bill, I think we could get one person in here. Let's go to Larry in Aurora. Good morning, Larry. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yes, I just wanted to make a quick comment. Is that when we're talking about, speaking of Elon Musk, and I think the board is okay with him maybe losing $44 million of his own money regarding that, but they're not okay with the losing money for them. Also, when you're talking about a board, I look at the gentleman, my pillow guy. Look, you know, he went with what he thought was okay, but he's also losing his own business. And I look at leagues, and I look at people who want to protect their brand. And I look at the Washington Commanders got rid of their owner, but he had his own personal thing. And I look at the San Diego, the Clippers basketball, and then but the league said no. You're not going to bring us down.
Yeah.
You focus
Larry,
on that.
That is a great point. When
Larry.
it's your money, it's one thing. When it's shareholder dollars, it's another.
Totally.
Really good point. All right,
Thanks,
you're
Larry.
listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is 710 KNUS.
in the Mile High City on this Thursday, May 1st, 2025. By the way, Kelly Michaels reminded me, happy National Day of Prayer.
Oh, that's
Today's the day. 1 Timothy 2, 1 through 4 reminds us to pray for those in positions of leadership that they may know the truth, they may come to a knowledge of Christ, and that we may live peaceful and godly lives in all holiness. So thank you for that reminder. It is National Day of Prayer. Lots of stuff happening out there.
Makes sense why Jeff earlier was doing a small prayer. Please deliver me from this den of iniquity and sinners. And please can we smite Bill and have, yes. I think that's what it was earlier.
We
That's
throw
what I
holy
overheard.
water at Bill.
Yes, it burns and it's not nice. It hurts. It's so awful.
We like to have some fun.
Yes.
Well, there's some big breaking national news coming, so we're going to take it right away to Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning. It's Thursday, 47 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 60 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, some more breaking news this morning. Plenty of media outlets reporting and speculating, including Fox, that National Security Advisor Mike Walls may be ousted by DJT and the administration due to a lack of confidence. We'll see what happens in the next few minutes on that one. The White House going after Sniffin' Joe and Kamala Khan's policies. Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller said if their policies had continued, it would have ended the American Republic. He also criticized the previous administration's border and economic policies, and also DIE. With DIE or you die. DEI and DIE. Follow?
One of the most significant crises that President Trump inherited upon taking office was the wave of racial discrimination, so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion policies that have taken over both public sector and private sector entities all across the United States of America. Perhaps the most dramatic example of this is that our air traffic controllers were being hired and promoted based on race and gender, not their ability to conduct our nation's air traffic. I would estimate that probably 90% of Americans would agree with the statement that airline safety should be based on your ability to keep, airline safety jobs should be based on your ability to keep planes landing and taking off and flying safely, not on what demographic box you check.
Well, last night, FBI Denver's special agents arrested Juan Gabriel Arona Rodriguez, who faces federal charges related to distributing cocaine. Arona Rodriguez is a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army.
Now, Blake, the real question there is, was he offering a military discount? I'm just saying. That's what you got to know about that one. Just want to see if it was honoring that. Okay. I'm going to see myself out. I'm going to go sit in the corner. Sorry about that.
I think that actually that is a very good point. Good question and very timely. I wish I had the rim shot. Sorry,
Thank you,
Billy. The DEA Rocky Mountain Field Division, the Department of the Army Criminal Investigation Division, and officials at Fort Carson participated in assisting in the investigation. Arona Rodriguez will be in court today, and they're not saying this is related to the huge raid at the underground club in the Springs, but 1 + 1 = dos amigos. And the DEA previously, if you'll remember, reported that there were 17 active duty military inside the club overnight Sunday morning. All right, here we go. Jazzy Jasmine Crockett went from just under, $200,000 a year to a net worth of $9 million the past few years, reportedly. New material this morning. I'm convinced. I am. I'm convinced. When she goes to the gutter, globalists pay her $100,000 for each skit. What a fraud.
As far as I'm concerned, you randomly kidnapping folk and you throwing them out of the country against their civil rights, against their constitutional rights. And frankly, how would they feel if some other country decided that they were going to just start throwing people randomly in our country? Like that is absolutely insane. So yes, all I got to say is y'all need to get these fools out of here.
Oh my goodness. If it isn't Little Miss Attitude, why are you always over here? I mean, don't you have a man?
Kamala Khan has a man.
Blake, you're killing me over here. That
I'm
is
sorry.
so funny. Well, first of all, that's Jasmine. What's her last name? Crockett?
Jasmine Crockett.
Jasmine
yeah.
Crockett. Okay, that's
Yep.
exactly what other countries do. If
Yes.
you're in another country illegally, they just toss you right out of it. Jeez, America's like
She's
the
not
only
that
country that's like, well,
stupid.
okay, we'll go through this long process to really.
It doesn't matter what flies out.
Just
out of her pie hole
airdrop into
now.
Zimbabwe. Do me a favor. Just airdrop into Zimbabwe and see how they
Yeah,
treat you as an illegal immigrant.
Oh my goodness, it's so absurd. It's so. It's,
That
you know
audio
what?
was brilliant, dude.
Shanae. Gotta love Shanae. And 80% of the people believe it that vote on the left. They think she's incredible. Kamala Khan says that people are just describing the recent months as absolute chaos. She criticized President Trump's tariff policies in her first major public remarks since leaving the White House. She said that the tariffs Trump has imposed are clearly inviting a recession, referring to what she now calls the greatest man-made economic crisis in modern presidential history. A minerals agreement between the U.S. and Ukraine is done. It will provide the U.S. access to new investment projects meant to develop Ukraine's natural resources, such as aluminum, graphite, oil, and natural gas. The Senate resolution that would undo President Trump's trade policy is dead after the VP, J.D. Vance, cast the tie-breaking vote on Wednesday. The Senate on Wednesday rejected a resolution that would have revoked Trump's emergency order, allowing him to impose global tariffs. The vote was tied at 49, mostly along party lines, with a handful, yes, of those Republicans. A few Republicans joining Democrats in support of the resolution. Do your research, get the names, let's go. 44 in Golden, 45 in Lone Tree, 47 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
You take that bass out of your voice when you are talking to me, okay?
Okay. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It'll be a cloudy, cool start to your day here in Denver with areas of morning light rain showers. Then there will be a couple of afternoon showers and isolated thunderstorms, highs 50s and lows 60s. Showers ending tonight, lows near 40 degrees. Sunny, nice day Friday, 60s, near 40 Friday night, warming to the 70s and sunny Saturday. 70s and sunny Sunday, but Sunday afternoon and evening, thunderstorms likely. Showers and thunderstorms likely Monday. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Yesterday, big U.S. Supreme Court case. Heated exchange over a blockbuster religious charter school case. The Supreme Court's conservative majority on April 30th seemed sympathetic to the Catholic Church's bid to create the nation's first religious charter school in Oklahoma, a potentially major expansion of the use of taxpayer money for religious education. However, the Chief Justice's relative silence makes it possible the case could end in a 4-4 tie, since one of the 6 conservative justices, Amy Coney Barrett, recused herself from the case. Apart from Chief Justice John Roberts, the other conservative justices involved in the case appeared swayed by the argument that barring the church's participation would be discriminatory. All the religious school is saying is don't exclude us on account of our religion, said Justice Brett Kavanaugh. The court's liberal justices, meanwhile, raised concerns about how religious charter schools could favor one religion over another and the entanglement, the government, and could entangle the government in religious issues. Really, what you're saying is the free exercise clause trumps the essence of the establishment clause. Justice Sonia Sotomayor told the attorney for the state's charter school board. The essence of the establishment clause was, we're not going to pay religious leaders to teach their religion. The Oklahoma case presents a major test for the separation of church and state. The U.S. Constitution prohibits the government from establishing a religion, but also says the government cannot prohibit people from freely exercising their religion. In some recent cases where those portions of the Constitution have been in tension, the Supreme Court came down on the side of protecting religious freedom, expanding the role of religion in public life. A similar decision in the Oklahoma case could greatly increase the use of taxpayer money for religious education. Bill, your thoughts on this particular case?
Yeah, it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea because the religious school seems to me to be wanting their cake and eating it too. And again, this is a school that comes out of my very own church and faith, the Catholic religion, because the school wants to say that we will use our educational opportunities to further the religion, to do it based on how we believe in our religion. And so the government doesn't get to tell us anything about that, but the government also needs to support us and give us money to let us do what we do. There has to be one or the other. Either you have the freedom to go outside the purview of what the government offers at times, or you need to go ahead and follow necessarily all the rules, and that's not really what this Catholic school, charter school, wants to do. So for me, they want to have the freedom of religion, but also want to have all of the benefits of being a government contractor. And I'm not convinced yet that you can do both. And this worries me. This worries me for a large number of reasons. But yeah, I think this is a bad idea, and
So-
I'm hoping that John Roberts will tie the court up on this one.
In previous cases, and I want to get your thoughts on this, in previous cases, for instance, playgrounds, right? The state was offering money to help redo playgrounds at schools. If you were a religious school, however, you couldn't access that money. And the argument was made, and I think the U.S. Supreme Court rightly argued, well, you're just purely discriminating against these schools because of their religion. You're offering grants and money to redo playgrounds, but all of a sudden, because you're a religious school, that taxpayer dollars is not available to you. That seems like you're discriminating against these schools because of their religion. Your thoughts?
Again, I disagree a little bit. Again, I would have to look at the money that was going to be allocated, because was it open for both public and private schools? And if there were private schools that applied for it, what was the private school that applied for it, and how did they get the funding? If this was money that was designated towards rebuilding public playgrounds, I don't think the religious schools have any sort of an argument in that bend. But the other part is that when you're setting up necessarily a religious school, in part, aren't you basing that in some based on discrimination? And what I mean by that is our religion is the best. Our religion is the path forward. Our religion is the way to God and salvation. So when you start on that foundational basis that discounts in some ways other people's beliefs, and then you want to be treated equally and fairly as other people that may not share your beliefs, I got a problem with that. That's why I firmly look at the idea of religious independence. I don't want the government putting rules and regulations on them, but also then that means don't come to me all the time and be asking for this type of government money and support. That I'm not looking for that. So you want to have the independence, but then don't turn around and say you want the support of the government while also demanding your independence. You've got to choose one or the other.
Okay. So I respond and I look at this and I believe that there's no such thing as a neutral public square. I believe that even if you have government neutrality, and I put that in quotes, there's still a worldview being pushed. And you see that anytime you go to a public school. You'll see things on the walls that reflect a worldview that I disagree with, right? I do not believe in gay marriage. I do not believe in the LGBTQ agenda. I do not believe in transgenderism, okay? But my tax dollars right now are going to promote that worldview within our government-run schools. Okay? So the idea that education, secular education, is just morally neutral, that it's educating kids with morally or neutral beliefs, those types of things, I just don't think exists. I think there's a worldview being pushed. And so what you have in America right now is a secular, godless worldview that's being taxpayer funded. And if you as a family want to educate your kids with religion, well, then you got to pay twice. So I think there's an active discrimination against religious families to where, okay, no, you can pay to send your kids to this school, and they're going to teach stuff that you morally disagree with, values that you disagree with. And it is taxpayer funded. But if you want a school that's going to teach your values, well, then you're not only going to have to pay your taxes to go fund the government-run schools, you're now going to have to pay for private education as well. That's where I think that there's a big problem here. And to quote one of the lawyers yesterday in this case, state law categorically bars religious groups and programs from getting any type of government funding, deeming religion to be the wrong kind of diversity. So we'll fund all other sorts of charter schools for lots of different reasons, but if you believe that there is a God, if you believe that that God has moral values and that those should be taught, that is the one thing that the state will not fund. It seems to me to be discriminatory against religion.
Well, the state can't, though, establish a religion. And so if they are then supporting it, is that a violation of the Establishment Clause by saying that it's okay? And I understand that you're talking about the idea that you believe that the government-run schools are pushing a worldview. However, you did talk about the idea of it being secular. That's the issue, is that it's secular. And we may disagree with it, but because it's secular,
see that as a religious worldview.
Yeah, and I would disagree because you can't tell me what the secular religion is. Where do they meet? What are the tenets? What do they believe in? What is the belief structure? No, that
they meet in schools.
It doesn't.
Here are their values.
But
they believe this.
But if someone's not in
Maybe
school,
you can change your gender.
But if someone's not in school, they're not leaving the religion, and they're not missing out on any of the services. So that's the idea is if it is, you need to show me the structure behind it. And that's why I don't. The secular has to create more of an encompassing view. I understand the idea of you talking about it being neutral, but the secular view also has to encompass more views. And there are some restrictions on that one where there isn't inside of religion. And that's where I have the difference behind it. And the idea still is that religion to me is very personal. And I'm not in favor of going ahead and saying that the taxpayer funding has to go to that.
We fund lots of things that aren't necessarily, though, the advancement of that or the establishment of that religion. So, for instance, let's go with Catholic Charities. Catholic Charities care for migrants that are coming across our border.
Yeah.
The government puts a lot of money towards them. It puts money towards the Denver Rescue Mission. That's faith-based. They're putting money towards those organizations to achieve an end. Those organizations happen to be religious-based. They're teaching morals, for instance, in a religious worldview at the Denver Rescue Mission. Is the city of Denver establishing a religion, though, by funding that?
How does the Denver Rescue Mission receive its federal funding or state funding? Because
I believe your question.
What I'm looking at is I believe that's through grants and other processes. It's not just a default like you get with the public school system. There isn't a time in which the state comes in and does a head count of how many people in the Denver Rescue Mission and said, oh, because you have this many people, we're now going to fund you to this amount over the course of the next year. They don't come back, from my understanding, to the state at the end of the year and say, here's the money that we spent and here's the money that we're going to ask for next year. The budgetary process is not the same thing that runs through the schools. And since that budgetary process is different, okay, now, if the charter school wanted to go through the same grant type process, okay, then I can be persuaded. But the default of supporting them the same way and function that you do with a public school, I disagree with because of how they're coming to the table. If they want that money, I'm not opposed to them having certain money for grants and things like that. That's why I can be malleable on some of the thing about the playground. It would depend on how the money was allocated and what the choices were inside of that. But if it was done based on all public schools and the religious schools saying, hey, we can't get access to the money, well, you're not, because you're not necessarily a public school. So then there is a delineation. So that would be the issue. Is I'm not aware of the Denver Rescue Mission having direct funding per se from the government that way. I believe it's done through grants and other applications. And so if the religious school wants to do that, that seems fair as well. And we can talk about what those rules are on that grant and funding, but I don't want a default fund.
Well, that's a carve-out that they're exploring. And even Justice Roberts explored that, going, well, this is another step forward. Funding the playgrounds is one thing, but taxpayer funding towards the education of these kids is another step up.
Yeah,
so is that one that's bad? From my perspective, though, and I've said this multiple times, government-run education needs to die the fiery death it deserves, and we should get to vouchers. And that might be where they land on this. We'll get to that in a second. Let's go to the phone lines. Dave in Golden. Good morning, Dave. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, thanks for the call.
Good morning. Hey, okay, Catholic Cradle Catholic, there we go. Grade school, high school, all, even Regis, and the conversation I had from my Christian brother upbringing to the Jesuits was always interesting.
Oh, dude, you did Christian brothers and Jesuits? Man, you hit both sides. Nicely done. Nicely done.
Oh,
dude.
I was
much respect.
I was the only one who only Catholic who actually knew his Bible, apparently. And
well, see, that's why, yes, we're Catholics. So that's why we pay someone to read it to us every week. It's that in the bulletin. That's all we really need to know. Yeah.
I had a good teacher at moment.
Yeah.
But I always thought that we were already having our cake and eating it too, as any religious institution, because aren't all religious entities, religions considered a tax-free or can gain tax-free status?
I believe so.
And because of that, schools like Our Lady of Fatima or Mullen or St. Thomas More, or wherever you want to go, where there is already some of that government funding going on, which is, and the reason I gained this perspective is because I couldn't understand why we didn't have bully pulpits for things like abortion and politicians who were just insanely they're bringing legislation that just made no sense and stuff like that. I mean, you always had that up until the time that they got their tax-free status, and then all of a sudden, no, we're going to lose it.
That's in part because of the Johnson Amendment and Lyndon Johnson wanting to try to quiet the churches down in the South. And that's why he implemented that. But I mean, your tuition is not tax deductible. And the idea being that parents right now, if you want to educate your children in a religious school, you're going to pay twice.
That's what bingo was for.
Yes. Exactly, my friend. Now, Dave, did I hear that? Did you say you went to Mullen?
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
Mighty
okay.
Mullen Mustang.
Hey. Okay. Now, let's see how far back this goes. Let's see if you still got it. Okay. Repeat after me. St. John Baptist de La Salle.
St. John Baptist de La Salle.
What do we respond? No. Do you remember the response at school? Oh, I don't know if it was if maybe it wasn't there when you were there. What era were you in?
No. I graduated back in the 70s.
Oh, may not have been there. Okay, because all the Mullen listeners will know that the response is St. John Baptist de La Salle. Pray for us. Live Jesus in our hearts forever.
Pray for us.
Yes.
Yeah, or forever.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think we should do that on the show now.
Yeah, everyone.
I love that.
Yeah, everyone. All my Mullen buddies. We like greet each other with that now. You sit there. You can walk into. Last time I was hanging out with a bunch of them. This is a number of years ago. The dude randomly walks up. We're all having conversations and just loudly goes, "St. John Baptist de La Salle," and all of us, without even thinking, go, "Pray for us." just like
That's
autonomic
okay.
response.
But so, guys, it seems like, though, in this Supreme Court case yesterday with the oral arguments, that Ketanji Brown Jackson may be the one that leans this towards vouchers. Okay?
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to decide whether or not a charter school is a government-run school or does it have freedom, because these aren't just pure government-run schools. These are charter schools. And my kids attend a charter school now in Colorado. It has an element of freedom. And you have charter schools that are out at Centennial Airport that teach kids to become pilots. You've got charter schools towards STEM. You've got charter schools towards kind of like more conservative, classical education. The idea being that we're going to give freedom. We're going to allow you to choose what kind of school your kids go to and what they might learn, but not religion. Not religion. That's the line we have to draw. How is that not discriminatory against religion? If you can have charter schools for pretty much anything else, but just not religious values.
That's why the voucher is a good way to go. You're letting parents make the choice.
Does that mean now, Dave and Jeff, does that mean that if we go to a voucher system, there's no more tuition at Colorado Academy? There's no more tuition at Kent Denver? There's no more tuition at Mullen or Regis or St. Fatima? Does that mean that those schools cannot charge tuition? Because right now the public schools don't.
Right.
And if you're going to take that voucher and the charter schools don't, and they receive that public benefit. So if we move to a voucher premise, does that mean Colorado Academy now no longer has tuition? What do you guys think?
Dave?
I think that's gonna. I'm going with it's going to end up the same way that our health program is going to end up, in that eventually everybody's going to have Medicare, and those people who elect to upgrade it to B, C, D through XYZ they're going to be able to get a better education because they're still paying more. So
isn't that what we're doing now?
Yeah.
Isn't that what we're doing now? We're taking the tax dollars, and if you want to go to that other place that may give you a better education, you have to pay twice. So the functionality of either this or the voucher program is to get us right back to where we started. And how does that fix it?
But I think there's still a choice of which schools are better.
Yeah.
That's
the point, Dave, because what you will see happen as a result of vouchers is a lot less money going to government-run schools. That'll be perfectly honest.
And that's okay with
if
me.
you ask inner city families, urban families, they want their kids. Poll after poll, they want their kids. They would prefer to have their kids in a school with religious education.
Yeah, but the religious education schools don't provide busing, and that's part of the problem with the inner cities. Is those families that have lower economic means don't have the ability to either show up at their job later, or sometimes don't have the financial ability to get the kids to school based on personal transportation. They've got to depend upon a public transportation system or a bus, and that's a problem. So that's another hurdle, but we're not forcing those religious institutions to provide busing or some of the other things. And that's the issue that I've got, is that what we've talked about here is that we're okay with the religious schools continuing to charge tuition, but now we're just going to offer a voucher. So we're back to square one, exactly where we are now, that we have public funding, but if you want to go to the religious schools or the other private schools, you got to pay more. Same thing we're doing now, but we've just given a whole bunch of tax money to the religious schools. Ta-da! I don't see how this is winning.
It's complicated for sure.
Yeah, it is, man. Hey, Dave, thanks for the call. Have a great day, man. I appreciate you.
Dave's line will be open 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Major U.S. Supreme Court decision coming down probably in the next few months as to whether or not charter schools, religious charter schools, can receive taxpayer funding. Is this a form of discrimination? The bans against funding religious charter schools a form of discrimination against religious schools, or is this an important line that we need to protect public these religious schools from receiving taxpayer funding, because that's the establishment of a religion Or should we just voucherize and allow families to send their kids where they want? If you're going to pay those tax dollars, you should have the freedom as a parent to send them to Valor, Mullen, any of those types of things. Would it be better for our schools? You know how I feel about government-run education. I am not a fan of it. I think you got to get your kids out of it. I think it's actually destroying lives. And so if we can start to move the funding away from these terrible institutions, I would support it. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking a Supreme Court case that took place yesterday, arguments yesterday regarding religious charter schools and whether or not they can receive government funding. Lots to debate here because you have two clauses of the Constitution at tension with each other. Is putting a single tax dollar towards anything religious a form of establishment of that religion? If you're providing grants for new playgrounds and you provide a grant to a religious school for its new playground, is that the establishment of a religion? Or is that the discrimination? Like if you say, no, we're not going to do that, you're discriminating against these schools simply because they're religious. So now you're violating the free exercise clause. And in part of this, are government-run schools neutral to begin with? I think that's a lie. I don't think they are. I think they promote an agenda, a set of values and beliefs that oftentimes I disagree with. So I, as a parent, now have to pay twice. As a Christian American, I have to pay twice for my kids' education. My tax dollars that go to government-run schools, but because they're driving an agenda that I disagree with, a pro-abortion, pro-LGBTQ, DEI, whatever it might be, and I want my kids to be educated in a traditional Christian setting, I now pay twice. How's that not discrimination against me? And are we going to settle with vouchers on this? This was all debated before the U.S. Supreme Court yesterday. Let's go to the phone lines. Raphael in Denver. Good morning, Raphael. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Good morning, guys. So all that I have to say is just be careful what you wish for. Because if you start asking for federal money for religious schools or Catholic schools, that means those schools, they're going to have to comply with federal laws, and they're going to have to hire same-sex couples as teachers. And also, is that going to be okay for Muslim teachings, for Quran teaching schools?
Yeah, and Raphael, I was thinking about the idea of, remember when Joe Biden got a bunch of stick last year when he was celebrating Transgender Recognition Day on the same day as Easter, and that was a big deal. But if you're taking that government funds, does that mean that religious school has to acknowledge Transgender Visibility Day? It's a good question.
Yeah, they're going to have to hire same-sex couples. And also, as far as I know, religious institutions don't pay taxes. That means they're going to have to pay taxes too. Or you cannot have it both ways, you know?
There's some other nonprofits out there that don't have to pay taxes. But, I mean, look at what we've set up, Raphael, okay? You have a school that you go into, they put a rainbow flag on the wall. They don't put the Ten Commandments on the wall, okay? They're going to teach kids that you can change your gender. They're not going to teach kids, thou shalt not murder. That's one of those is going to be funded, right?
Well,
they're going to
teach
pay
the murder thing personally. Maybe a different example because you can't do that. Hey kids, go kill somebody. Maybe they have no other god before me or hold false idols. Maybe that one. Yeah.
But I mean, my point being in that case, I mean that was brought into our culture by the Ten Commandments. It's part of our culture, but they're already promoting a worldview, and taxpayers are paying for it. And our kids are being educated in it. And I think that they're actually achieving what they intend to do. I think our kids are coming out of these government-run schools as little progressive socialist activists. They can't read. They can't write. They're not hitting their scores on any of those numbers. But they're coming out with socialist, godless worldview. And we're all paying for it.
Well, the division is between church and government, and that's where the division is. And just to your point that you pay double taxes, you know what? I got $2, and my $2 went to Catholic schools all the way from kindergarten to college. So,
and I bet they turned out better as a result of it. Look, I'm tired. I don't believe it's a neutral public square. I don't think that what the government's doing in our kids' schools is somehow neutral, good. Oh, they're all learning. No, they're learning a worldview. We're all paying for it, but God forbid you want to teach the Ten Commandments. Raphael, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks
you,
so much. Because then that's a line we won't cross. 303-696-1971. Deborah in Lakewood. Good morning, Deborah. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning.
Hey, I'm with you, Jeff. You said everything I believe better than I can say it.
I appreciate that. What else is on your mind?
What else is on my mind is I don't have kids. And, but I have a nephew that does have kids. They're not in school yet, but they're going to be. And I would love to have my tax-paying money go to whatever schools that my nephew and niece-in-law wants to send their kids to.
And I think what's going to happen, Deborah, and I'm not going to lie about this, this is an effort to defund government-run schools. And I believe they need to be defunded. I think they're terrible.
I do too.
I think they're harming kids. I actually think what they're doing to our kids by not being able to teach them math and reading and writing, but coming out with the idea of you can change your gender, totally progressive sex education, all this. I think it's actually harming kids. So I think government-run schools are harming kids. We're writing checks for it, and everybody gets really offended. The idea that $1 would go to a kid going to a Catholic school. I appreciate it, Deborah. Thank you so much for the call, Deborah, from Lakewood. 303-696-1971 is the phone line. Want to talk to you. Where are we? We got to get to the Art of Granite here. I'm all over the place on our reads. Let me talk to you about our friends over at the Art of Granite. I've gotten to know Mitch Floria. Wonderful guy. And he's got a copy of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence in his office. He believes in the values of this show. And he is a resource for you to transform your kitchen and bathroom into stunning masterpieces. The Art of Granite is your premier destination for exquisite granite, marble, or quartz countertops. For over 15 years, Mitch Floria, owner of the Art of Granite, has been crafting and installing custom countertops, fireplaces, showers, and more. Their team of experts will guide you through the selection process, ensuring you find the perfect stone to match your style and budget. All you got to do, visit their showroom in Golden, browse their online inventory at theartofgranite.com, and discover the endless possibilities for your home renovation project. All you have to do, mention KNUS, and you'll get a free bathroom countertop with new kitchen countertops. Or choose a free kitchen or bathroom sink with any countertop package. You don't have to wait. Transform your home into the oasis you deserve. Schedule your free consultation with Mitch today. Go to theartofgranite.com. That's theartofgranite.com. Again, all you got to do, mention is KNUS for those exclusive savings and transform your kitchen or bathroom dreams into reality. Theartofgranite.com. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill School. We're talking a U.S. Supreme Court case that was heard yesterday with regards to whether or not religious charter schools should receive state funding. Is that a violation of the separations clause in the establishment of religion, or are we discriminating against these schools by saying, oh, yeah, we'll fund everything else. Put your pride flags on the wall. We'll fund comprehensive leftist sex education. But God forbid you want to talk about God, then no, absolutely no tax dollars. Let's go to Fred in Castle Rock. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on. I tend to agree with the fellow that called in earlier about careful what you ask for. My wife and I paid for our children to go to private school, not Christian school for the first elementary, middle school, but then to Regis for high school, and then even private school once they went to college. And we do pay twice, and it's expensive. But that said, I'm concerned about getting public funding and public government involvement in those choices. And even schools like Regis, for example, you will have people that are, most of the administration and a lot of the things that they do are centered on social justice, et cetera, that may not be purely religious, of course, but it does tune in with one side or the other, more than one side. And it's not what people may expect of religious schools.
But Fred,
leave it to the Jesuits.
But yeah, Fred, in this scenario, though, and I think what we experience in America is rich people get to have religious education and poor families don't.
Well, sir, I certainly was not rich when I started, and we made a decision when we got married how to send our kids to school. We made sacrifices. We weren't rich.
Yeah, and I do know there is a significant portion of the parochial schools, the private schools, the elementary, K through 12, that do run on scholarship. So you can apply for scholarships, and I know that both Regis and Mullen offer scholarships as well to go there.
Very
But
much
you have to
so.
apply. Yeah, there's a number of kids that I know that their families are on scholarship going to both Regis and Mullen.
But
So
guys,
that is
again,
possible.
we're making people do a
And
lot
they
of
fund-
work.
and
They're
they
having
fund
to go
busing.
through all this. You pay second. You got to get scholarships. All that for religious education, but government education, which I, again, am going to say is not neutral, gets taxpayer funding.
No, it's not. Well, I Jeff, your end result I agree with.
Yeah.
The end result,
Despite
despite all that I've gone through, I agree with, is that I don't necessarily want to have any kind of government involvement. I need parents to have the money, and I need parents to make the choice. And the free market will sort itself out one way or another.
Well, Fred, I would say that you spent your money and you made your choice. My last question before we let you go, because we're coming up on time here. If we did go that direction where we use the public funding for the religious and private schools, can those religious and private schools still charge tuition? Should that tuition then be erased? No more tuition at those schools. Your opinion?
I think the funding and the term tuition would change necessarily.
But can they charge
and
extra?
There would be some. They may charge extra depending upon what they're offering.
Then now aren't you paying
And
twice?
I think, no.
Yeah,
no,
you are.
because then you're
paying.
then
You're using
be
the voucher, then you're paying the tuition. So
Then
you're paying twice.
don't interrupt me, please, Bill. Then they would be paying for the additional benefits that they get from that.
Same
So
thing
it
they're
would
doing
be
now.
like the Medicaid thing, like
But
we had
same
from the
thing
previous
now.
caller.
That's exactly what I had there, and I appreciate the call, Fred. But that's exactly it. Same system. Same system.
Bill, I don't dismiss the idea that, like with colleges, this would now drive up tuition. I think that's a serious concern. But again, we're making religious families pay twice right now. That's a concern of mine.
But based on what Fred just said, they still would. You'd still have the tuition. You'd still pay twice. You're not solving the problem that is your pain point.
That's when you then see the argument, maybe we shouldn't be funding education with tax dollars
Well, that's
anyways.
it today.
Oh, we're checking Bill.
KNUS.